Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, my name is Grayson Hoffman. I am a Lake Anna resident, a Lake Anna real estate agent, and a Lake Anna real estate investor. Today's episode is all about short-term rentals. Short-term rentals. These have become very popular here and elsewhere over the last 4 or 5 years. I think you're going to find this episode very interesting. If you have ever thought about owning or purchasing a short-term rental, this episode is for you. If you currently own a short-term rental or multiple short-term rental properties, this episode is also for you because this episode is going to address how to squeeze and maximize every last drop out of a short-term rental. We're looking for that perfect formula, and we're going to discuss this today. Before I introduce our guest, you're probably wondering why this bald guy sitting here blabbing about short-term rentals, has anything to contribute. Well, besides my beautiful haircut, let me just give you a little bit about my background, which might be helpful in making that decision. I am a full-time real estate agent here at Lake Anna. I am also a full-time resident here at Lake Anna, and I've been here since birth. I know I probably look 15, 16, 17 years old, but I am a little older than that. I've been here for many, many moons. I know this area very, very well. It's my favorite place on earth. In my capacity as a real estate agent here, I have helped hundreds of clients find, research, and acquire short-term rentals or properties that would be perfect short-term rentals here at Lake Anna. So I've been doing this, what we're going to be talking about here today, for years. Taking off my professional hat, speaking personally, I have personal experience as well. My wife Ashley and I own short-term rentals. So we have personal experience and we have skin in the game here as well. So I hope that background is enough to keep you watching just a little longer, at least until I introduce my guest. Short-term rentals. What is a short-term rental? These are also called, you'll hear them, Airbnbs. These are simply homes that the owner makes available for rent for periods of less than 30 days. Short-term rental is just a home that's available to rent less than 30 days. Typically, the most common rental periods range from 2 or 3 days up to 7 or 8 days. They typically don't exceed 10 days. Sometimes they will, but typically you're looking at that 3 to 7 day mark. These are very, very lucrative assets. Short-term rentals in the right place, managed the right way, and we're going to talk about that today, generate a lot of passive income. And that includes the ones here at Lake Anna. There are numerous short-term rentals here at Lake Anna that generate $200,000 and $300,000 of income a year. $200,000 and $300,000 of income a year. That's a lot of money. Recently, I had a client retained me to sell his short-term rental, which was a property on the private side here of Lake Anna. And during his last 12-month period, his short-term rental generated $306,000. $306,000 just in 12 months. And you're probably thinking, well, it was a giant 12,000 square foot mansion, et cetera, basketball courts. It wasn't. It was a 4,000 square foot home, but it was managed correctly. It had the right amenities. It was a really cool house, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't massive. If I recall correctly, it had 5 bedrooms or 6 bedrooms, but it was managed right. It had the right amenities, and importantly, it was marketed correctly, and it got him over $300,000 a year. They don't have to be giant properties. The sales prices here for Lake Anna, kind of the sweet spot for the short-term rentals, they range from maybe just under $1 million, $900,000, and up to about $2.5 million. The value of those homes, the value of all these homes have increased drastically over the last 4 years, 5 years, helped by COVID. And the next 5 years are going to continue drastically increasing in value and price. And we'll be looking back in 5 years talking about, you remember the days when you could get a waterfront house for $1 million at Lake Anna? But to be a successful short-term rental, I want to emphasize this before we start our show. It does not have to be an ungodly expensive home, and it doesn't have to be giant. And we're going to dive into the details in a minute, but I want that to be one of the takeaways here today, It doesn't have to be a $3 million property, and it doesn't have to be 9,000 square feet to make a lot of money on a short-term rental. In case you haven't heard, many of my listeners here at Lake Anna Podcast have probably heard this already, but in case you haven't heard, recently national business publications, Forbes magazine, Bloomberg, announced that Lake Anna was the top spot in the nation to have an income-producing short-term rental. Top spot in the nation. And that was primarily due to the large return on investment here at Lake Anna. The price to get into investment properties here at Lake Anna is relatively inexpensive when it's compared to real estate sales prices in some of these other short-term rental markets. Aspen and Miami and some of these places where the prices are very, very expensive. Our market is less expensive than those, and we are close distance to Washington, D.C., Richmond, and Charlottesville, where high net worth individuals are willing to make a short drive here to spend a lot of money on short-term rentals. So that's really placed us on the map. And in the last couple of years, the number of investors purchasing short-term rentals has increased, not surprisingly, here at Lake Anna. All right, we're about to jump in. I want to break today's show down into 3 separate parts. The first section is going to be how to find the right short-term rental. And that's going to be talking about the importance of having the right agent helping you, a local agent, and we're also going to talk about what you should specifically be looking for in your short-term rental property prospects. Size, location, etc. So that's section 1. Section 2, we're going to talk about how to go about actually purchasing a short-term rental property once you've identified and found the one that you want to purchase. Here we're going to be talking about certain terms to consider negotiating on, and we're also going to be talking about different financing products that can be used to purchase short-term rentals, what the interest rates are like, down payment amounts, etc. And number 3, and perhaps most importantly, we're going to be talking about how to perfectly manage your short-term rental, or how it should be managed to really squeeze every last drop out of it and to maximize your profits on the short-term rental. So I think at this time, I'd like to introduce today's guest, Daniel Kauffman. Daniel Kauffman owns and manages a company here, a short-term rental property management company here at Lake Anna called lakeanna.org. His company specializes in managing these high-end, high-producing short-term rentals here at Lake Anna. I like to call Daniel the scientist, because when it comes to managing a short-term rental, this guy is an absolute scientist about it. He has the perfect formula that he assembles. He lays it out, he presses the button, and his company absolutely produces. His company focuses on using smart technology, and they have a superior team that ends up producing incredible results, generating high revenues for their clients, and lots of 5-star reviews on the homes. The homes that they manage here produce $200,000 and $300,000 a year for their clients. And that's a lot of money. Just think about this for a minute. Let's say that you owned one and your annual mortgage payments were $75,000 or $100,000. So that's how much you're paying to own this home. What if that property produced $200,000 of rental income every year? You're netting $100,000 to $125,000 a year profit on that property. That's a lot of money. That's better than anything's doing in the stock market right now, that's for sure. So I'm really excited to have Dan here today. And we're on. Dan Kauffman.
Hey, how are you doing today?
Welcome, man. I'm good.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. So you guys literally just came from a new short-term rental, like a walkthrough of some kind, one that you're onboarding?
We've onboarded a number of new rentals. There's a couple communities where we've got brand new homes that are being built. And as those homes are built, we furnish them, we get them ready, we get the listings live. It's a process. And our first guest for that particular property is actually arriving today.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. So you're doing like one final check.
Yeah. We had a cleaning
This is a
team.
brand new house
Brand new home.
here at Lake Anna, of course.
Yep.
And what private or public side?
Private side. The community is Rock Island Landing.
Brand new
and
subdivision.
Brand new subdivision.
Nice.
Yeah. And there's still a decent amount of construction going on over there. But
Who built the house?
this one was an evergreen home.
Okay.
Yeah. So they were still going through some final like touch-ups and checks of the property to make sure that everything was good.
Today? Evergreen?
Within the last like couple weeks.
They're like over there still putting a couple shingles on it.
Yeah, right.
Dan, it'll be ready, we promise. The check-in's at 3,
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
I put a new pull on a cabinet in the kitchen today. I like had like a little screwdriver out, like, and even we vacuumed a little bit because the person that came in to do some like last minute touch ups didn't
Made a
clean up
mess.
after- yeah, made a mess.
Yeah, the contractors, they wear like muddy boots inside. You're like,
Right.
come on, man, come on. So tell us briefly about the house, size, water frontage. Do you have a
Yeah.
picture of it? Is that the one with
this
the
is
double-decker boathouse?
No, this one has a huge beach, and
Here we go. Okay.
I love the large beaches. This one has a beach that's in a cove too, so
Nice.
it'll last.
So right behind the house, that's the Kentucky Springs Road Bridge, private side you can see there.
Correct. Yeah.
know exactly where
and
this
they've
is.
got a massive peninsula that is between them and the lake.
Mm-hmm.
And they chose, in my opinion, maybe the second best lot in that community. And they've got
Is this
over
next picture is at the beach.
Yeah, the next picture is
Nice.
the beach. So honestly, when it comes to selling homes, you want to have a picture of the house. But when you're selling vacations for people, you want to have a picture of like an amenity. And
Right.
people aren't coming for the house. They're
Yep.
coming for the beach. They're coming for the water and the boat dock. So
Unique amenities, relaxing amenities. So this is in Rock Island. This is crazy. I'll tell you this story. So this was farm pasture before. I
Yeah.
don't know if you ever saw it before they started building.
we did, yeah.
And I'm a recreational skydiver. I used to be a professional skydiver, recreational skydiver, and the owners of the land were the Chisholms.
Okay.
And they used to let us parachute jump into this and land. So I probably have 20 or 30 skydives into that exact. I've landed my parachute exactly where this house is
Really? Wow.
numerous times. Yeah, really, really cool. Little sad to see it developed, the
Yeah.
personal side of me, but of course the professional side of me. I'm like, yes, let's do it.
It's
But this is, I know this exact spot. This is a beautiful, beautiful spot. So congrats on that contract.
yeah.
So this is what, 5, 6 bedrooms?
Yeah, this one I believe is a 5-bedroom home, and they finished out the basement So our family actually owns the same model home, but we haven't.
Oh, it's the
finished
same
the
as yours.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so they have upstairs 3 bedrooms, and then actually, you know what? I think this place upstairs they've only got 2 bedrooms. They've got a larger loft than what we have at our property.
Yep.
At our home, we finished out the loft and turned that into a bedroom.
Oh, nice.
So they've got 2 bedrooms upstairs. It's like Jack and Jill style. Mm-hmm. And then they've got 2 bedrooms on the main floor, and then they've got a bedroom downstairs. So there's 5 bedrooms at this place. 6 bedrooms. Is there a third one upstairs? Oh yeah. So they've got Jack and Jill upstairs and a suite upstairs. So there's 3 upstairs. There's 2 on the main level. The primary suite's on the main level, which is fantastic. It's got water views from the bedroom. It's just unbelievable. And then downstairs they've got an additional bedroom. So 6 bedrooms. And
So this is similar to yours.
Yeah.
When I say yours, I mean you personally own one,
Right.
not far from this one,
right.
in Elk Creek Landing,
Correct,
which is right,
yeah.
kind of the neighboring subdivision right across the water. So this one has the finished basement. Yours is still not. You have not finished it. You put a deck on yours, but you haven't finished it yet.
Right, yeah. So we bought our property and it needed some additional work to make it truly inviting for guests. And we prioritize for our property cleaning up the area between the home and the water.
Right.
It was like briars.
I remember.
Just not nice.
Yeah.
So
I remember.
we
That was
cleaned up.
good because you want a good yard.
Yeah, and then we added a deck on the backside. We made a massive deck.
Yeah, it's a big deck.
Huge, like as big as we could go.
Well, I want to get to the details in a minute.
Sure.
Of that, but I mean, your personal one did well over $200,000 in a
Correct.
12-month period, and this one has more finished space,
Yes.
a bigger view, etc. So I mean,
Yeah.
this one will be. I see this one pushing up against $300,000 in rental revenue.
Yeah. I'm always hesitant to sign up for high numbers.
Good.
I can guarantee
putting you
that
on the spot.
property is going to do
It's going to do well.
do very well.
Yeah.
And that's where it's tricky is you can push a high revenue number through a home if you really want to, but there's also a little bit more wear and tear as you like incrementally try to get that last dollar. And
Really?
So, yeah. So
Just from sheer number of people, just
Sheer-
stuffing it.
sheer number of people, like, do you want your occupancy to be 100%, or are you okay with it being at 70%? And during that other 30%, those are like weekdays that are like less desirable. We can do work on the home, clean the home, make sure it's nice, and like not push it too much. If there's, any damage that happens, which almost never happens, or if there's things that you want to do to the property in between guest stays, you've got a little bit more flexibility. Our property, we did 95% occupancy in 2023.
This is your personal property
Yeah, the property that
you
we
started
have here.
with,
Yeah,
right? You did 95 occupancy.
95.
Nice. And the other 5% was you used it yourself, or does 95 include you guys using it yourself?
95 includes our use.
Okay.
We had about a month of personal visits, owner visits, that we did like maintenance, that type of thing at the property. And then the other 11 months, we just rented it out. And so the 95 basically means that we missed like one day a month that we didn't have somebody there. And to be completely honest, there were nights that I gave away where there was a guest departing on like a Thursday night. The next guest wasn't scheduled to arrive until Friday. I reached out to the guests who were arriving on Friday, and they were like, hey, like we would like to come early. And
You'd let him come the night before?
I'd much rather give away a free night and create more value to the guest experience than like try to nickel and dime them for a couple $100.
Yeah.
They're already
This guy
paying.
gave us $1,000 night for free.
Yeah.
We're coming back.
That's 100% the way I see it.
Yeah, that's good.
And
Smart.
there's a certain threshold. Like if it's an expensive night, I'm going to try to book it, but it's really hard to fill those like one night gaps. And so I'll either discount it down maybe 50% of what the original price was, or if it's, low enough, I'll just give it away.
Interesting. So So almost as a common practice or strategy, it sounds like when there's a gap, you'll proactively reach out and say,
Oh, yeah.
"Hey, do you want to come a day sooner for 50% off?"
Yep.
Or something like that's a great idea.
Every time, yeah. So whenever there's like a 1 night or 2 night gap, I reach out to the departing guest and the arriving guest, and I say, "Hey, we've got a 1 night gap, we've got a 2 night gap. Would you be interested in arriving early, departing late?"
Do people say no?
Yeah, people say no.
I
I mean,
get, well, I guess
people are like,
schedules. Yeah, I
I
can't
can't
get
make
there.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
but usually
But even if
it's
they can't come, that's still a great customer service gesture. You've made the impact.
100%. Even if they say no, they still are like, "Oh my gosh, that was so thoughtful of him to ask if we wanted to arrive early."
You're
And
like, I'll cook you dinner. I'll come over
yeah,
and I'll cook you dinner. No, that's a great. That's just an example of, as an example of the reason I don't think I've ever told you this. When I'm talking to my clients about you and your business, I call his nickname is the scientist.
okay, all right.
You're the because you approach this like you've got your lab in the basement, you've
Yeah.
got a formula, you are super scientific about it. So you're the scientist, and I think that that is a the large cause of your success so far. I think that it's data driven, and you take a very scientific approach,
Yeah.
and you understand that it's so important, as you just said, to keep them happy, like to make the experience great.
Yep.
And then it's good for everybody. And then the guest, they're not a tool that's being used. They're having a great time.
Right.
You guys are doing well. Your clients, the owners, are enjoying massive profits. So it's good for everybody. But let's back up. How did all of this start for you? You guys, like, because you've had great success here.
Right. So I got my training wheels in short-term rentals in downtown Baltimore, Maryland.
Be more.
Yeah. I had a buddy, Matt Durrett, that owned a short-term property management business up there. And so it was turnkey, meaning we were able to buy a property. He helped us pick it out. And we bought a property next to the stadiums. And he helped us through that process. And by turnkey, I mean we were going
Like
to have
by Camden and
by
the
Camden.
football stadium right
Yep.
there.
Yeah, so we looked at a number of properties, ended up buying a property for $200,000. We did a $50,000 down payment. So
Like a little condo or something.
it's a 3-2 townhouse.
Townhouse. Okay.
Row house is what it's called.
Okay. Yeah.
This home is over 100 years old.
Wow.
I don't even know how old it is because in the property records, like the date is like 1900 because it's like before
And
then.
it's before that, right?
Yeah, it's really old. And it's been renovated recently, but it had sat vacant for like a year.
Wow.
And then we came in and bought it. And here's what I love doing, creating value.
Mm-hmm.
That place was empty. Nobody wanted it. We went in, we bought it. We spent about $30,000 on like furnishing and cleaning up the place, making it nice. And then we actually had this Matt Direct guy, Cozy Vacation Rentals, rented for us initially. And it did really well. And he did a great job with it. And eventually what happened though is he also had a business down in the Texas Hill Country.
Okay.
And that business exploded for him. It's like
Literally in the state of Texas.
in the state of Texas, yeah.
So he was managing properties in Baltimore and in Texas.
Yeah, his wife, Jenna, was from Texas originally, and they had family down there, and that place is booming. It's like Texas wine country, like in the middle of some big cities. You get into like a small town, Fredericksburg, Texas, and it's a really big tourism industry there. And so they had these like
Interesting.
huge homes, and like their business was just taking off there. And in Baltimore, being the downtown city that it was, politics and the way things work. The mayor of Baltimore had, maybe a few years ago, kind of got kicked out for, certain reasons.
Variety of things, right?
Variety of things. There's
There's no corruption in
strong
Baltimore.
none whatsoever.
It's a good place, safe place.
100%. So there's some hotels in downtown Baltimore, and they were like, "Hey, we don't like these short-term rentals because they're taking business away from us." And so what happened is
Not good.
they passed a law in like the end of 2018 that grandfathered in the existing short-term rentals, but you could only have one per person. and then they basically made it so that you had to have it like live in the property in order to like rent it out. And so you can't do what
It had to be an owner occupied.
owner occupied. Yeah.
So you were stuck at that point. You only had one at that
We
time?
had the one, and we got grandfathered in. We bought in like March, and they passed the rules legislation in like December of that year. And so
Was it your primary residence at that time?
no.
So
No,
you
it was-
didn't satisfy that requirement.
No, didn't. It was 100% an investment property. Honestly, if they hadn't passed that legislation, I would have bought a bunch of them
Yeah.
because they were fantastic.
So one of the rules was even if it was grandfathered in, you could only have one.
Correct. One per person.
Wow. So if you'd have been really screwed if you owned like 5. You would
And
have had
there
to sell.
were.
There were people.
There were people that owned a lot, and they got squeezed. So, and to be honest, it had to be in your primary name too. So we had it in an LLC, and we had to dissolve the LLC so that we could keep it as a short-term rental.
So that caused you to start looking for greener pastures.
Yeah, for sure. And that property's done fantastic. In 2022 and 2023, that property grossed over $90K per year.
This was the Baltimore one.
Baltimore property.
Did you keep it?
Oh yeah,
Oh, you kept it.
for sure. That's where I learned the short-term rental game.
Okay.
Because I had that guy, Matt, doing it for me for a while. But then he moved to Texas and basically fired us. He was like, I've got so much going on. I'm going to concentrate on the Texas market. And that's when I took over as the property manager. And the best year that they did for us, I more than doubled that when I took over.
Oh man.
And honestly, he did a great job. But he just had, what happens is if you have hundreds of rentals, it's hard to truly like
Yeah, it is.
give 100% to the properties that you have. So, I took over for that property and learned how to do short-term rental management from, I live in Northern Virginia. So I'm like an hour and a half away from Baltimore. I don't actually live there, but I'm managing a property there. And so it's definitely doable. And I had a lot of success learning from him and just doing it on my own. But it's very different renting in a city than it is renting at like a vacation spot like Lake Anna.
I bet.
So, yeah, that's where I got the short-term rental start.
So how did you get to Lake Anna?
So we were having so much success with that property, and we were like, hey, where can we grow our short-term rental business? And I looked all over. I looked at beaches. I looked at lakes. I looked at mountain properties. The cities, I was a little bit hesitant to go after because you could run into like some legislative issues there.
Yep.
And so what we really looked for was a location where it's a regional drivable vacation destination that has been that way for a while. And the local economy here at Lake Anna and these places that I looked at is very much dependent on the tourism industry. And so
It's true.
they love their tourists. I mean, I don't know. Talk to some locals.
So
The economy
Most.
benefits from the tourism industry. and is
whether you
relying on
realize it or not.
Yeah. So, I mean, but
So you looked at a bunch of different
I looked at a bunch of
areas.
places.
Deep Creek.
Deep
and
Creek was
beaches.
a place that we looked at, and I really like Deep Creek a lot.
Yeah, it's pretty.
They've got the lake there, which is nice, and then they've also got Wisp Resort, which is like a ski
Right,
resort.
right.
And so it's like kind of like they've got multiple seasons there. Another place that I looked at is I'm originally from Harrisonburg, Virginia, and over near Harrisonburg, I got a really
Massanutten.
strong network. Yeah, Massanutten, 4-season resort. They've got the mountain, which is like skiing, and honestly, skiing's tough. Like we haven't had a whole lot of snow, and so
Yeah.
But that
They make their snow.
They make their snow.
They make
and
snow there.
so
Not on all of the trails, but some of the trails they do. Limited.
wintertime, they've got demand there, and then they've got an indoor water park there, and a lot of other
Yeah, it's huge.
draws. And so it's really a 4-season place.
You've been in that water park?
Biking. Yeah.
It's
sure.
crazy.
Yeah.
It's, man, a lot of,
It's like Great Wolf Lodge type deal. So
and none of the kids pee in the water there.
never.
It doesn't, they don't allow it. There's signs that say,
Right.
so it doesn't happen there.
Perfect.
So it's safe. But so you looked at Massanutten, you considered Massanutten.
I did. And, there were a couple homes in Massanutten that we liked. The issue with Massanutten is that the price point in Massanutten is average price point probably in like the about half of what you would pay at Lake Anna. And so like if you're looking to like just get in, like that's a good opportunity because you can get something at Massanutten for under $500,000. You know, like you can get a pretty nice place, but
Different returns.
different returns,
Very different returns.
and also the amount of total cash flow that you can get is very much capped. And so you'd have to get a couple properties at Massanutten in order to generate the same type of total income that you could here at Lake Anna. And you're asking yourself, like, what is my time worth? Do I want 3 properties, 4 properties at Massanutten, or would I rather have like one nice property at Lake Anna? And
Bang for buck.
bang for buck.
It's bang for buck.
We also like the lake a lot,
Personally.
personally. Yeah.
Because you have a family, you're married, kids.
I'm married. I got 2 kids, a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old.
Nice.
We considered doing like a beach type home. We went on a beach vacation to the Eastern Shore, and it was terrible because the amount of time in the car with our young kid at that time, he just like cried the whole way.
It's at least twice as far.
It was so far. Whereas if you're coming from Northern Virginia, DC, even like Maryland, Lake Anna is less than 2 hours for most of those places.
Yeah. If you don't hit bad traffic, you can do it in 90 minutes. I used to do it in 90 minutes.
So
yeah, you can nail it.
Very accessible. And then personally, I love the warm water here on the private side because we've got like a beach set up. And so it's like he gets the beach, but like we don't have to drive all the way to the beach.
Right.
So
Right.
And then my sister actually, she lives down in the Norfolk area, Williamsburg area.
Okay.
And so for our family, Lake Anna is kind of central. So my parents come up from Harrisonburg, Virginia.
Cool.
I'm in Northern Virginia.
Meet in the middle.
Meet in the middle for sure. And we had a few Thanksgivings where like we went over to my parents' place and they've like kind of moved into a retirement home. And like it's got 3 bedrooms, but like now that I've got kids and my sister has a daughter,
It's tough to stay there.
it's a full house.
Yeah, I bet.
So
I bet.
we definitely were looking for kind of a multi-purpose property. So we wanted a place that we could come to and gather at as a family, but also a place that we could rent out when we weren't there. And I think there's a lot of people that do that. And it's called like a lifestyle asset is what I would call it. And
It's like a hybrid.
it's a hybrid. And there are certain rules about personal usage that you want to adhere to, but
You're
generally speaking,
referencing some of the loan products.
loan products, but also like tax purposes. So there's a certain number of days that you're allowed to stay in your property, like without and still have it be an investment property,
Right.
and write off the expenses for that property.
Right.
And then there's also, obviously I'm not like a tax expert,
Yeah.
so I think
Neither of us
Yeah,
are.
right.
We're not CPAs. I am an attorney, but I'm not a real estate attorney. Yeah, that's the disclaimer for this whole thing.
got it. Yeah. So
We're not investment advisors either.
right. So there's rules about like what expenses you can write off depending on how much personal usage you have of the home. And you'll have to like, if someone's looking to buy a place, they'll have to look into that and talk with a tax professional about that. I think my understanding is you can use it for up to 14 days for personal use and still consider it an investment property, or up to 10% of the nights that it's rented out. So if you rent out your home for 300 nights, you can be there for up to 30 nights as personal use.
And yeah, and we'll get into this a little more. There's also a distinction between an investment home versus a secondary home,
Right.
which can trigger a lower down payment. You know, 20% versus 10%, and there's rules. But bottom line, talk to a CPA, talk to a tax professional, and they can clue you in on that. So you landed on Lake Anna as it's close to DC, but also a central point for your family.
Right.
And then what steps did you take down here at Lake Anna?
So to back up just another step, like I've got a background in economics, and I've got a master's in business.
Mm-hmm.
And so I deep dived analytically to find the place that
The
would provide us
scientist.
the best return. And Lake Anna was the clear choice for me based on the criteria that I had, which was I wanted to be within drivable distance of Northern Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, so we initially were looking for just my family. My wife and I were like, hey, we'll go buy a place by ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what's available. And at that time, like our kind of like price point that we're trying to keep under was about $600,000, I think. And so like we couldn't find anything lakefront at that price point.
Right.
And we found some homes, and honestly, I think the returns on, a water access lot or a lake view property might even be higher than like a lakefront property in terms of like return wise. But we really wanted to be on the lake. And so what we ended up doing was we said, hey, like, if we want to be on the lake, if we want to use this and enjoy this as a family, we had to partner with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And so we ended up partnering with my parents to buy our property down here.
Now, full disclosure, I was your agent.
Yeah.
Now, initially, did we look at water access
We
homes
did.
together? I remember going and looking at one home like way out in the middle of the woods.
Yeah.
That was, it might have been the first home that we looked at together. That was not a waterfront, was it?
So we looked at,
And I remember the log cabin that you almost bought, the historic one.
right.
And then it just needed too much.
Yeah.
Smart decision.
The first property that was like way in the woods came with a bunch of land as well.
Yes.
And it was not in great shape.
Right.
And that one was actually waterfront, but it would have needed a decent amount of work. And so that kind of scared us a little bit. And then we had an offer in on that
Mm-hmm.
200-plus-year-old log cabin.
Yeah, and Wynwood
And
Coves.
Wynwood Cove's great neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not going to be lakefront, you want to make sure that the neighborhood that you're getting into has amenities. That neighborhood is fantastic. They've got like a basketball court. They've got
Big beach.
tennis, a huge community beach. They even have a gate at the front where
Yep,
they make
it's
sure
gated.
it's a gated community.
Big party gazebo. 2 common areas there. Boat slips. You're right. It's one of the
Really
better
nice.
common areas here at Lake Anna.
Yeah, so if you're not lakefront, you want to make sure that you're in my opinion, in a community where you've got some of those community amenities.
Mm-hmm.
And so we found a place that we liked a lot. And when you're going for a short-term rental,
Push your mic closer to you a little bit.
Yeah.
Just pull it. You don't have to sit forward if you just make yourself comfortable.
when you're buying a short-term rental, it's a little bit different than a primary residence.
Mm-hmm.
You want something like unique, memorable, something that draws people in. And so that was part of the reason why we were interested in that 200-year-old log cabin.
Super historic.
Historic. People
There were
are-
like swords there. Remember those swords? There was like these. There were these historic swords there that
Yeah.
weighed. They were like Conan the Barbarian swords. They weighed like 50 pounds each.
for sure.
That was crazy.
And people
I
at
don't know
the
why
time,
those were there.
there are also different like categories on Airbnb.
Right.
And people are always looking for cabins. Like that's like one of the search filters that you can use.
Right.
And so like
People get drawn to those
people
specifically.
get drawn into like a wooded cabin. Like that's like high in terms of what people are looking for from a unique experience perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, I'd probably never buy a log cabin for my primary residence.
Right.
Like, no chance. Like,
Right.
say-
Me either.
That being said, you know, I also probably wouldn't want to buy a house that has like pink siding or like yellow siding,
Mm-hmm.
or blue siding. Like, I mean, blue siding's fine, but at the lake, people are looking for
The
something
unique-
unique,
the unique
something that
experience.
stands out and
Yeah.
memorable. And so, like, those types of things are attractive and add value. And like when they're like looking through a 1,000 listings online to try to find their next vacation property, like there are things that will stand out in people's mind. Like, oh, you remember that pink house? Like,
Right.
that looked like fun. Like, let's go there.
Right.
So,
So you can get away with having a little more of a unique, property.
it's beneficial, I think.
Yeah, like I would own. I don't, but I would own a log cabin short-term rental.
Yeah.
all day long.
Yeah.
Just because for the reason, like you said, a lot of people actually seek them out.
I was
Because you're not going to find a log house in Washington D.C. or something like sitting around.
no, and the city people love coming to
Yeah,
that
they
outdoors.
feel like they're
they're
feel
roughing it.
they're roughing it, right? We're having my $2 million log home.
I had a search filter on for like Zillow. It's like Virginia, and then within the keywords, I was looking for log home. Like,
It's a good idea.
where's a log home? Like, show it to me. I want to buy it.
So you got it, but then I remember like we got some inspections done and needed a lot of work. And
Yeah, one can only imagine a 200-year-old log cabin needs some work.
needing some work. Right.
So we kept looking though.
So we kept looking, and then you found this one.
Yeah, we ended up purchasing a property on the private side in Elk Creek Landing. And Elk Creek Landing is a newer development. The home that we bought, I think, was definitely one of the first couple homes that were built there. And it wasn't perfect, meaning that like it needed a deck, it needed some stuff done to it, but like,
Unfinished basement,
still
unfinished.
but it was very new, and so the finishes were all modern.
Yeah.
It photographed super well.
Nice house. It's a
Really nice
house.
place, and we ended up getting it fully furnished too, which was a big value add for us because
You were the second owner, if I
we were the
remember
second
right.
owner. Yeah.
Okay.
There was a family that lived in there, and
Briefly.
yeah, they lived in there for a little bit.
And you got it for, and this will be a little more relevant later when we're kind of crunching numbers. I think you got it for between 1.5 and 1.6.
So
little under 1.6.
1,335 for that property.
1,355.
And then we put on a huge deck. We spent a decent amount of money on additional furnishings, and like all in, we ended up being like just under 1.6.
Okay, all in.
All in.
But your purchase price was 1.3 and change.
Yeah, 1.3 and change. Yeah. And well, so what was crazy was I think we were over 100,000 above the listing price. Like it was a crazy time, and we
Yes,
had an
it was.
escalation clause in there, and we had just recently lost out on a really nice property over in the waters, and we were a little sore about that loss, and so we had an escalation clause, and we're just like willing to pay top dollar because we
You had
really
to do
wanted-
that, especially at that time. You had to
Yeah.
do it. It was really competitive. So you got that. How do you go from there to starting the company?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, neighbors, like we have a 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath home, like 3,500 square feet approximately. And that neighborhood is really nice. Like our home it's a nice home. Like don't get me wrong, but the quality of the other homes in the neighborhood are above where we are. Like everybody's already finished out their basement. They've got, 4, 5, 6,000, 7,000 square foot homes with like, 5, 6, 7 bedrooms.
Yeah, there are
And
some nice ones over there.
there was a property right across the cove from us, and we were crushing them in terms of like our occupancy and the amount that we were earning compared to what they were doing. And this was owned by a guy who lived, not too far away, and like he was self-managing, and he hadn't really done it before. And so I was like, his like listing photos weren't perfect. I mean, they weren't great. And so I was able to like create a friend with a neighbor and say, hey, look, like, let me help you out here. Let me like help you achieve what this home can truly achieve. And so that was my first client, right across the cove.
Basically a neighbor.
Yeah,
Is
exactly.
that the one that my wife ended up listing? It was to the left of Blue House.
Yep. That
think we have
was,
We have a picture of that one here. Somewhere, yeah. It's called, is that Cove Beach?
So Cove Beach is a new one that we are on the process of
Okay, so it's
onboarding
wrong.
now.
That's wrong.
This
We'll come back to
one
that one. There's on the back.
is called Big Dream Oasis
Big
is
Dream,
what it's
okay.
called. And what's tricky is
There it
that
Okay, Big Dream Oasis. Yeah, I see. It's the blue one. Yeah, I remember.
this place, well, so this is like
Yeah, because when we sold that one, you were managing it at the time.
right. I had taken over the management for this guy, and then he's like, oh, I'm going to sell and like cash out. And he's like, I can like get a whole bunch of, he's going to redeploy it, do a 1031, I believe, into some other type of investment. But yeah, nice place. It had
Very nice finished basement, movie theater.
right
Yeah. Bar, full bar, and kitchen downstairs.
a dock, a beach, great views, a really nice fire pit area in the backyard. Fantastic place, and I was just crushing them. Like, so it's like, eventually he came around, and so I took over for him. But then they sold the home shortly after.
Yeah, and
I
I
took
think
over.
it's worth emphasizing that you were crushing them, but your house was smaller.
Right,
Basement not finished.
not finished. Yeah.
Like no boathouse.
No boathouse.
He has this amazing 2-slip big boathouse, and yours is crushing his.
right,
Yeah, so I think it's pretty powerful.
and there's a lot that goes into that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And we'll talk about that more. But I think the results, like I say, the results speak for themselves.
Right.
So
was
he
my
was your
client.
first client, and then what? How did you grow from there?
So then my second client was another neighbor. We were down at the lake for a family vacation, doing some work on our property, and my father-in-law was like, "Hey, there's a guy that I talked to when I was on my run, and he said that they're going to do short-term rentals out of his property." I was like, "That's cool. Like, where is he?
Right.
I want to go talk to this guy."
Right.
So I went up and knocked on the door, and I met an owner that was eventually owned 2 properties in Elk Creek Landing, and they were just finishing up some final touches there. And these homes were custom built to be short-term rentals. And when you're doing that, they did a great job. Like, I love the way that they have the layout set for these properties. There's enough room in the bedroom for a king bed, and then most of them are suite bedrooms. And so,
So you got a bathroom.
you've got a bathroom attached to almost all the bedrooms.
And that's important because a lot of these short-term rentals are rented by multiple families
Yeah.
or groups.
Yep.
And that gives them the privacy to have their own bathroom and their own separate space.
100%.
Or
Couples
kids.
retreats, like
Yeah.
you can have a bunch of couples in there, and they've got everything that they need. So I went over there, talked to him, walked around the house with him, and that was my second client. And they had, like I said, 2 properties that are like identical, and so they want to do it themselves, and that's cool. Like, honestly, I think
Managing it themselves.
a lot of people can. It is a lot of work. You can be successful on your own. Like, maybe a little bit later we can get into like how you can operate things yourself. There are some easy ways to get like 80% of like what I can achieve.
Which you could, right.
Right. And then like to get that like last like 20%, like you really have to have experience. You have to know what you're doing. And like, it's a lot of work to get that like last 20% of results. And so that was what ended up happening, I think, is like they realized like, hey, like we could use some help here. They talked to some other management companies, and I was able to provide more of like a personal relationship where like if they have any issues, they like call me up. I answer the phone,
Yep. Not a big giant mega company.
Right. Not a big giant mega company. And then also like I could show them like the results that I was getting for our property, which is in the same neighborhood, same street, smaller, like half the size. And they're like, wow, if you can do that for our property, like, let's do that.
It's compelling. It's compelling. So you grew from there.
Yeah.
And you've got roughly 10 properties now?
So right now, we've got 9 properties that we've got listed on our website. There are a few other owners that we've talked to that are high probability of adding on that we'll probably have onboarded before this summer.
Nice.
We've honestly been turning away a decent amount of potential clients because, up until this point, I've been working my full-time job and then also doing this property management thing. And it's a lot of work. I can only do so much myself. And so end of this month, as of like March 1st, I'm going to be 100% property management, short-term Lake Anna focused.
That's all you'll be doing.
That's all I'm going to be doing. And so when you cut out like the 40 to 50 hours a week that I was doing with my like primary job,
Mm-hmm.
I'll be able to really like dedicate time to growing the business and making sure that I can deliver on the experience that we want to provide to our guests and owners.
Well, that's smart of you and noble of you because you're turning down more money.
Yeah, it's hard.
But it's hard to do that, but it's respectful to your clients and your future clients and,
Right.
your current clients
Right.
because if you get stretched too thin, then you're doing everyone a disservice and yourself and your family. So power to you on that decision. But I imagine once, you're going to continue growing. You're going to continue growing.
Yeah. And I'm always willing to help people out. Like people come to me, they're like got questions, they want to do it on their own. Great. Like let me like help you be successful because like I said, I can't do everybody's home and that's not what we do. Like we're really focused on like providing that luxurious experience, that 5-star experience to every single guest that we can. And we can't do that for, 100 homes. It's just not doable today for us.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on your success.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Let's. I want to get some of your thoughts on this. I want to move into like what I'm going to call the kind of the first, section. Though we've been just kind of riffing here for a minute, but I wanted to get your thoughts on, and I'm going to provide some thoughts too on how to go about finding the best short-term rental, like when you're in the search, because you've gone through it. I've gone through it. I take clients through it all the time. And I wanted to start by, and of course, this is going to sound self-serving, but I think it's really important to have the right real estate agent.
100%.
And I'll let you speak to this, but it is about knowledge, a local expert, especially when it comes to short-term rentals, like the local experience agent is going to know, they're going to know the areas that are attractive for a short-term rental, and there's some areas here at the lake that you really want to avoid, i.e. very northern tips, bad, shallow, muddy water, etc. But if your agent doesn't know that, you're bringing out of town agent in, they might say, hey, look, some of these properties up at the other northern end, oh, look, they're a little cheaper. I wonder why. I don't know. Let's go up there. And you make a purchase, and you've got 3 renters, and they're all complaining about, the nasty water, and you're done. You're toast.
Right.
Your rental operation is sunk. So a local agent is going to bring that expertise. A local agent is also going to have the knowledge about value at that moment, how much this property is worth, the negotiation skills to get it hopefully for a little less than that. So you're starting with a little positive equity. Your mortgage payment is a little bit less than it needs to be, more cash flow, et cetera. So, I mean, I could sit here, I could go on for 30 minutes about emphasizing the need to find a good local. If it ain't me or something, just find somebody who really, really knows it.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
100%. And we were talking about that 200-year-old log cabin.
Yeah.
And Grayson actually was, representing me on the buy side. And most real estate agents will like push, and they're like just trying to get you to closing.
Yeah, buy.
Buy. And honestly, like he helped me walk away. And that was a fantastic decision. And he understood.
He being me.
Yeah, Grayson helped me walk away from that property. And that was an amazing decision. Like, and
it wasn't.
He didn't like push me away.
It wasn't right.
It wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't right. And ultimately, it's your decision. I mean, I think. Yeah, people don't want to be bullied into anything. It never goes well. You know, when you walk into a department store and someone starts hammering you about the suit or the dress or the shoes you need to buy, it'll turn you off. And these are much bigger decisions, obviously, than the suit or the dress or the shoes. So my goal is simply to just be an advisor. You tell me what your goals are.
Right.
Now I'm going to give you my professional opinion on how to achieve those goals, even if they're not what my goals would be. So I pretty quickly saw that property and what needed to be done to get there wasn't going to serve your goals. So when you started talking about an exit, I was like, it just made sense, and we were out, and it led to this.
Right.
So it worked out.
Honestly, a local trusted advisor is invaluable.
Yeah, it is. It is important. Another important thing I think is to find an agent who is familiar with the short-term rentals.
Yeah.
There are some tricky rules that go into it. There aren't many, but there's a few subdivisions here at Lake Anna who are regulating it now. There's a couple that have said no more. I mean, there's almost 200 subdivisions here. 99% of them are welcoming to short-term rentals. Everyone should know that, despite some of the rumors that are floating around out there. 99% of Lake Anna is pro short-term rental. But there are a few spots, and an unwitting, unknowing agent could walk you into a sale where they're not even allowed,
Right.
and that would obviously be bad. Another thing to think about too is it can be tricky where you're purchasing a property that's already a short-term rental, and they've got it on a platform, and there's reviews, and there's money, and there's deposits in place. How does this work? There's 10 reservations in place. Some of them are before closing. Some of them are after. There's one that straddles. How do you handle all that? How's money, refunds, transfer? So we do those, and I've specialized in those. And you have an agent that doesn't know how, and those can actually be bargaining chips as well, and they can work in your favor, or if you don't know, it can work against you.
You definitely want to go with an agent that not only understands short-term rentals, but also owns a short-term rental. in
Owns
my
them,
opinion.
yes.
Yeah.
That was going to be my
Because
next point.
That's once you own it, you understand.
Yeah,
And
in a way that you can't without having it's like anything in life. The experience brings another level.
exactly. Yeah.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point. And yeah, and we own some. So give me a call. Just kidding. Let's talk about the physical kind of aspects. Let's do nuts and bolts here. Most important physical attributes or components to look for when we're searching for a short-term rental here at Lake Anna.
Right.
Talk about waterfront versus water access. Just
Sure.
present day, ROI, what's going to be your best bang for buck? Affordability aside, because we'll talk about financing in a minute. Just
Right.
from a data perspective.
The way that I like to think about it is taking a step back and saying, what's the avatar? Like, who is going to be booking my property? Is it couples? Is it are families going to come stay here? And when you take a step back and think about those types of people and what they're looking for, it makes it so much easier to filter through and find the right property for yourself. And, for us, it was easy because we were looking for something that would be great for our family. And so our property is optimized for families, like, multi-families, like a couple different families getting
Yeah.
together at our place, love it. And so that's one way that I like to think about it. You can also, to get to your point about like waterfront versus water access, waterfront is amazing for so many reasons. You can like just go out and get in the water. You've got better views typically from the waterfront locations. And ultimately, the pictures that you put online are a big reason why people will choose different properties. And so being waterfront like makes it jump out to people.
That's what people want.
Yeah.
That's what people want.
People are staying and choosing locations primarily in the summer based on the outdoor amenities and activities that they can enjoy.
Because it's Lake Anna. People are
Yeah.
coming to enjoy the lake.
You'll see, maybe a small home that might not be as nice do fantastic if they've got nice outdoor amenities for people to enjoy. That was one of the things that like really blew me away. It's like when I was like looking at data, like there were a couple homes that were like smaller and like older, and I was like, why are these homes doing so well? And one of the things that I realized is there were a couple homes that had these huge beaches, and like people loved it.
People love the beaches, man.
Man,
They really, really do.
a small house with a big beach was doing as well as like a nicer, larger home. I was like, I couldn't believe it.
We installed a beach at one of ours. Did you install one? Have one
yeah,
built
for sure.
at yours?
I think the beach is the highest ROI investment you can make on any lakefront property because it really turns it into, an beachfront home.
Yeah. Yeah. Kids love it, especially it's great for little kids.
Yeah.
Moms, it's easy for them to get in and out. Mom can sit there with them. So yeah, my bottom line on that is assuming that the pricing works for you, I always recommend to investors go waterfront because you're going to get your biggest bang for buck.
Right.
They're going to pay for themselves and then some. A lot of
Right.
people are intimidated, understandably, by the price tag. But if they're available enough and they're managed correctly, they're going to pay for themselves and then some, and then some.
I also think long term, one of the important things to think about as an investor is appreciation. And there's only so much lakefront in terms of square, in
Supply and
linear
demand.
feet. Yeah. As we start running out of lakefront lots, the demand for them is just keeps going up and up. And some people complain about their tax assessments, like, oh, my, tax assessment went up a whole bunch this year because I've got this lakefront lot. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, great.
Yes,
My home's worth so much
exactly.
more.
Right.
Wow,
That's
this
a
is
good
great.
thing. It's a good thing. Yeah. I mean, your tax bill is a little more, but it's a good thing. Yeah. It's a good. I'd be worried if it was going the other direction.
Right.
Yeah, great. My taxes are going down, but guess what? So is the value of my home. Like you don't want that. Yeah, you don't want that. It's a very good point.
Yeah, I think the appreciation long term, in my opinion, is going to be higher on those lakefront lots.
Absolutely. Waterfront. Water is different. The quality of the water is different at Lake Anna in different
Yeah.
places.
For sure.
And do you have thoughts on how that impacts the rentability and the quality of the reviews, and how should people approach that?
Yeah, so I'm biased on this one. Ultimately, I think the most important thing is you want to get what's best for you, and it depends. Being close towards the middle of the lake is kind of nice because you're close to a lot of the activities that are available, like the restaurants and those types of things, the grocery store, that type of thing. And personally, though, I love the private side of the lake. The warm water, I feel like, extends the season. And so people can get into the water earlier and they can stay in the water later. And so the demand from short-term renters is greater on either side
It's a little
of
longer.
the summer. It's a little bit longer, yeah. And it honestly, though, in the middle of summer, the water's almost too hot, depending on where you are.
It'll get warm.
What people don't realize is that the closer you get to
Dike
the
3.
lake, Dike 3, the warmer the water gets. And so
Or Dike 1. It's closer. Is the
closer
warmer.
you get to the power plant,
Dike 1, exactly.
Dike 1,
Yeah, because it's
the warmer the water is.
just in case there's a slim chance that somebody isn't familiar with public-private. The private side is warmer because it's the discharge side from the power plant.
Yeah.
The water is discharged from the power plant and it sits on the private side while it cools down, and yet it makes its way 2 million gallons a minute.
What?
It's pumped out. Can you believe that? I had
No.
one of the top guys here on the podcast, and he
That's
said
a
when
lot of
all
water.
the 2 million gallons. You ever gone up and sat there
No.
in a boat?
I've gotten close, but I haven't gone
Have
too
you gotten
close.
out? Oh
No.
man, go up there next time and make sure somebody's with you in your boat. Park the boat if you can anchor it. Great, but just park the boat and then get out, and just rest on your life jacket or something, and you are. I mean,
You're
it
pushed
is.
away.
It is pushing you. Oh yeah, in 2 minutes, 3 minutes. I mean, you'll be 50 yards.
That's crazy.
Oh yeah, it's nuts. Yeah, it's really cool. It's fun to go play with. So it's really driving the water. That's the discharge point, and it goes past Dike 1, Dike 2, Dike 3. So if ever you want the cooler water in August, you go all the way down to Dike 3 right before you end it. It's about 10 degrees cooler. But yeah, you're right. It can get August is when it'll get warm. And I've heard there's some people prefer the public side for that reason. They'll say August, private water, it's a little warm. I
Right.
prefer but I'm like you,
It's
man.
like
I'm a
bath
wimp.
water.
I'm a wimp when it comes to cold water. Yeah, I want the bath water.
Yeah.
I love it. Love it.
It's like you got a heated pool in your backyard. It's
Man, it's
unbelievable.
awesome, and it's great for kids.
The-
My
especially
kids are
little kids
yes,
that-
they're not
oh,
jumping in a
man.
freezing swimming pool or something.
For sure.
My kids are totally spoiled now. Like if we go anywhere in the water, get in a pool, it's like 88 degrees. They're like, "This is freezing." I'm like, "You guys have no idea what you're talking about."
Yeah. I'd say though the public side is better maybe if you want to boat a lot because it's a little bit bigger and it's easier to get a boat in and out up there. The private side is a little bit calmer, a little bit less boat traffic, a little bit more secluded, and that's one of the reasons why on the private side we've got most of our rentals on the private side, and we partnered with a boat rental company, DV Rentals, so they can deliver boats to our homes because it's really hard to get high quality boats delivered on the private side to renters.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, just an important point I'll make here as an agent, the property values are the same on both sides and the demand is the same because a lot of these factors we're talking about are subjective preferences.
Personal preferences,
Yeah.
for sure.
Do I like warmer water or cooler water? Do I want more boat traffic because it's exciting or
Yeah.
less and more relaxed? So it's really, it comes out in a wash from a property value perspective. But I will say, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, when I have clients that are investors, I steer them away from the northern tips of the lake where the water at the northern tips, and I'm not talking avoid the whole northern half of the lake or
Right.
anything above. I think people take this to the extreme.
Yeah.
I'm talking about way up past Thames, way up north, where the water in some places is 3 or 4 feet deep, all
Right.
the way across,
Right.
and it's beautiful. But when we're thinking about short-term rentals, these people want a lake experience, and you're not going to be able to jump in, do a cannonball, ride a boat around in those areas.
Yeah, I think that's very valid. And the further northwest you go, especially
Right.
the very tip, that's when you run into like water quality issues.
You'll also, but for someone that's not looking, I'll just make this point for not looking for a short-term rental, and there are some beautiful places up
Oh,
there
man.
that people use, and you can get them on a discount for this very reason. People who just want to kayak or hunt or fish, and you can get them, 10 or 15% less expensive. These big, beautiful houses with amazing views, and you don't realize there's a water issue until you try to swim, and it's waist deep or chest deep or something like that. So,
Right.
not knocking the northern end, just in the framework of our discussion here today, if I'm guiding someone into a business asset, I'm going to steer them away from that because it's not going to produce the same way.
Yeah. The only negative thing that I've experienced, and it's not super negative with the private side, is that whenever you're doing anything on the water, you have to get Dominion's approval for stuff.
Construction.
Construction. Like if you want to build a new boathouse or build like
That's the same on both sides. You need permission on the other side too.
do you feel like the amount of hoops that you have to jump through on both sides is the same?
In my experience,
Okay.
they might have because it's the discharge side
Yeah.
and it's not considered public. I do, and I've experienced this in some other areas where I've interacted with them where they do pay a little closer attention
I
to
feel
that
like there's a little
side.
bit more scrutiny.
And there's commercial activity is not allowed
Right.
on that side.
Right.
That's another example of I think they control that side a little tighter.
Yeah.
So that's true, and that'll manifest itself in their efforts to mitigate erosion and some of the tree
Right.
issues and removal of trees, cutting them down.
You can't like boat to Tim's from the private side,
Correct. Correct. I heard a story not too long ago where a Northern Virginia agent brought down a client and sold them a house on the private side, not knowing there's a difference, and their clients didn't know a difference. And the clients were in their boat on the private side driving around trying to get to Tim's. And they stopped someone and said, "How do I get to Tim's?" And they're like, "Really?" Sorry.
crazy.
Sorry. What are your thoughts on size of house? Is there a sweet spot for short-term rental? We've been talking about, the avatar and
Right.
the families, multiple families.
For size, the most important thing is being able, heads and beds is important. And by heads and beds, I mean the more people that you can have in your home, the lower the nightly rate is per person. If your home is $1,000 a night and you've got 10 people in there, it's $100 a person. If you've got 20 people in there, it's $50 a person. And so I like to hit what I call the sweet number of 16. On Airbnb, once you hit 16, it's 16 plus. They don't advertise 17, 18, 19, 30
Oh, interesting.
guests. It's 16. So I try to do whatever I can to
get to
up
16.
to 16. And after 16, it doesn't matter as much. So in our property, we have like, in some of our bedrooms, we'll have like a king and then a double like bunk. And so it'll like be a two twin bunk. And so you can have 4 people in that bedroom.
Nice.
And so that helps you get up to that
Mm-hmm.
16 number.
Mm-hmm.
And are those beds always fully utilized? No. But if I can get up to that, 16 number, now I'm going to appear in the search results for people who are looking for 16 guests.
It has the capability.
It has the
That's the
capability.
point.
Yeah.
So, similar to my thoughts, usually when I'm walking an investor around the lake and they're looking for a spot, I usually try to guide them into something that has at least 4 bedrooms.
I think that's a great place to start.
Okay, because I feel, I mean, there's some great rentals that are 3 and 2 bedrooms, but I don't. They're not capable of hitting those $175, $200,000 marks.
Right.
They're going to be closer to 100.
Exactly. And you can do 3 bedrooms, but you have to have like a bunk room, an area that is safe for
6
you to
beds,
put
8
a
beds.
bunch of bunks in where the kids can be.
Other thoughts on attributes that you think are important when you're hunting for short-term rental? Main living areas.
I like great rooms
Okay.
where your like kitchen in your living area is connected. People are often looking to spend time together when they're vacationing, and so the more you can have an environment for them to do that, the better off you're going to be. Um, there, I also do like a game room too.
I think those are critical. You got to
Game
have a
rooms
space
are
for that.
fantastic because it's a separate area where you can put the kids and they can play and have fun, and like the adults can be like upstairs relaxing, chatting, having a good time, or maybe the adults go down and play too. But having like fun things to do is like the reason why people vacation. They want to have fun, relax, enjoy themselves, and so that's another thing that I like a lot.
Also, for if they're coming to the lake,
Yeah.
and let's say, God forbid, there's a bad weather day or two,
Yeah.
it gives them somewhere to go. We, in our short-term rental, we converted when we bought it. It had an attached garage that was just a
Right.
dumpy garage,
Right.
and we converted into big game room and threw some extra bunks in there. So the heads and beds number went up.
Yep.
It also gave this cool kind of game room for the kids or adults. And that's always an idea, I encourage my clients to consider because, some of these houses will be 3 bedrooms or 4 bedrooms, but there's a garage that's not
Right.
being utilized.
Right.
And renters could care less about parking a car in a garage. So
Nobody
you
ever
just
uses garage.
maximize that space.
Yeah.
Jump on it. And you can do some cool things for, without having to spend a ton of money. I
The
hear
other big benefit
Yeah.
for the game room is the off season. So like January, February, if you've got
Yes.
a game room, people aren't going to be going and getting in the water in January, but they can still come there and it drives up the demand in the off season.
Yes, it brings the winter renters. That's
Yeah.
so important. What other amenities bring the winter renters? Because that's a question I get a lot. How does they'll ask me, how do yours do in the off season? And ours do pretty well. And I think it's largely because we've got a game room,
Yep.
we've got a hot tub,
Yep.
fireplaces.
Yeah.
So, and those,
I'd also add a deck to that.
And a deck.
Somewhere where people can like go outside briefly and enjoy the view. Or you know what? Even if you can be inside the house and have a nice view, that makes a big difference
View's
too.
important.
View. Oh yeah. I think
View's
view might be the number one amenity that I'm looking for when I'm considering what place I want to buy as an investment property.
because the advertising photos
Oh yeah.
will show that. And then when your experience at the house,
Yeah.
especially people that don't live here full time, when you wake up and look outside,
Oh,
and
that's the best.
that's what you see. That's
Yeah.
what you see. It is pretty remarkable. What are your? Go ahead.
The hot tubs are good for driving demand in the off season.
Yeah.
So people will select a home in like January, February sometimes because it has a hot tub.
Mm-hmm.
Hot tubs are typically pretty high ROI in terms of like the amount of money you put in it versus how much additional like income you're going to generate from it. But they're also a high hassle factor. And by that, I mean, you have to have someone come by regularly to clean it. There's going to be guests every now and then that come and like the hot tub isn't clean for whatever reason. And so it takes a lot of additional work to keep that nice. In the summertime, people will get into the lake, like the kids will get in the lake, and then they'll come and they'll
Get
jump in the
straight
hot
in.
tub.
Creates chemical
And
problems. Yeah.
yeah, so they're just hard to like
It's more
keep
work.
nice. It's more work. Yeah.
But man, I'm no second thoughts on ours. Like it really does help.
Yeah.
And you can post signs, and some people will ignore the signs and they jump in anyway.
Right.
And then the property managers are calling, yeah, we had to drain it and clean it. And yeah, so it is a lot of work. But that's one of the amenities that I push most for my clients and advocate most for.
Yeah.
Because it really does. And people even use them, at night during the summertime. If they want to just chill and have a glass of champagne or something and sit, it's relaxing. But it really, really does help to bring the winter crowds. It really does.
And that's another amenity, the hot tub, one of those check the box amenities that I'll call.
Yes.
And for me, check the box amenities mean that if somebody is filtering properties, the first filter that they're going to use is going to be waterfront. Because in Airbnb, there's like categories, and along the top, you're going to click, I want a waterfront home.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say that they really want to have a hot tub. They're going to go in and filter for just properties that have hot tubs.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe they really want to have a pool table. They'll filter for just properties that have a pool table. So there are certain amenities that are available that are like check the box amenities that people can go in and proactively say, like, I only want to look at homes that have these things.
That's awesome. There are some properties here at Lake Anna, some of the rentals, mine included, has a slide. We installed a water slide.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on those in terms of ROI and
Always. I mean, as long as it's safe to install a water slide on your dock,
some of them are pricey.
they are. I think anything you can buy that adds like fun to your home, 100% you should do. And I think those slides are typically pretty durable, so like they'll last a long time.
Yeah.
You're not buying a new one every year. And then once you've bought something like that, whether it's a hot tub, a slide, you want to make sure that you get pictures of that item,
Up on your advertisement.
amenity, that really make people want to use it. And for the hot tub, it's not just like, hey, here's a hot tub. It's like you want to have that hot tub running with the bubbles coming up where they can like have also see like the water in the background. And so they're like just envisioning themselves like sitting in that hot tub and just enjoying the beautiful views. Same thing with the slide. Like you really want to have, if you have this type of slide, you want to have the water running.
Yep.
So that people can say, oh my goodness, like I can't wait to slide down that thing into the water. So yeah, it's.
Did I see in one of your advertisements, was there a picture of you going down the slide with your hands up like this? You had a Speedo on, was that? You get right in there on the pictures, just kidding.
So sometimes I've seen pictures where there are people in them.
People using it.
It's not
Some
very
kids.
common, but I've seen some pictures where there are people in like a hot tub or kids jumping off a dock, and that really draws people's interest in, and they want to like, click and learn more and investigate further.
Thoughts on boathouses? Does it need to be a big double-decker boathouse? Do you need something just is a pier enough just for people to jump off and fish off of? Because the boathouses are expensive.
This is a hot take. My property does not have a boathouse at all.
Blue Heron.
Blue Heron. We spent somewhere around 13.
This is yours?
Yeah, Blue Heron. Our property.
You get the nice beach.
We've got a massive
beautiful.
beach. So we spent like, let's say, maybe $15,000 on a beach, which sounds like a lot of money.
It's beautiful.
It's a 120-foot beach. It's massive. If $15,000, can you buy a boathouse for $15,000?
No,
not even
close.
close.
You can't even start. Yeah,
you can't even get the pylons done.
Right,
for
right.
that. They're really expensive. Boathouses are.
Yeah, you're going to start, even for a single slip wood boathouse now, you're going to start 60 grand, 70 grand.
Right.
And you can easily spend 300 grand, on a boathouse, a big 2-tier with composite decking and everything.
I had no idea how expensive boathouses
It's like
are.
a house.
Yeah.
Size of the house too, some of them.
I will say from a case study perspective, we've got 2 properties that we manage. One has a double-decker boathouse that's probably worth like $250,000. Like it's just unbelievable. It's got this huge area upstairs where you've got all these.
We got a picture of one of these.
Oh, I got a picture of it. Yeah. This boathouse is the reason why people book this home.
Yep.
And the financial results speak for themselves because we've got a duplicative property that's the same exact except for the boathouse. And
What's the difference?
Significant.
Really?
Yeah. So this is the boathouse
right.
at one property. And then we've got at the other property, it's like a single slip. And people.
And so and they're identical otherwise.
The homes are exactly identical.
Really?
Like, I mean, the couches might be different color.
Yeah. But give or take, they're identical.
Identically built homes.
And what's the difference? Are we talking like $50,000 difference, $30,000 difference?
I'd say
roughly
at least 50 per year.
Wow.
And so you're probably looking at 20% more revenue from that boathouse. So like, how long does it take for that boathouse to pay itself off? Like, maybe
wow.
3 or 4 or 5 years, but that's still like a pretty good ROI. It's at least 50,000 more per year that they get from having that nice boathouse. So,
because that's where you're gonna spend most of your awake time is on that boathouse.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think it's worth emphasizing that that other one still probably does pretty well.
Yeah.
You don't have to have it. There's a big return if you have it.
Right.
But I think there's a misconception that I encounter a lot with investors who come down and they're familiarizing and they think, oh gosh, I'm going to have to, spend $250,000 on this to have a successful short-term rental. And it's just not the case. It's not the case.
Necessary.
I mean, yours has no boathouse right now. You went beach option.
Yeah.
And you're crushing it.
And I don't know when or if we'll do a boathouse. Like if we're able to achieve the results that we have without a boathouse, like I'm not sure if we need one.
Right.
My personal preference is that if you're going to do a dock of any kind, the most important part is where people will be, not where the boat will be. And that's maybe a hot take because if you're buying a primary residence, you might want to have a boat that's like in that boathouse. But if you're vacationing at a property, maybe you could probably tie up a boat to a dock. Like what you're going to use is you're going to have people that are on that dock, like, getting some sun or jumping off the dock. Like that's the part of the dock that's the most used from what I've seen.
Yeah, and I mean there are benefits of having even just a pier. If someone does want to rent or bring a boat,
Right.
they can tie it up. But at the same time, depending on the type of boat, if I'm renting your Blue Heron property where there's no boathouse but you have a beach,
Right.
if I have like an outboard or an inboard outboard, I can drive my boat right up and just kind of beach it.
We have people that do that. And that's
do
what
that.
we do. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can still have the boat, use the boat, rent the boat if you don't have a dock, and you can still fish from the shore.
Yeah.
So, but it's one of the more common questions that I get from investors. Do I have to have one? How much money do I need to spend on it?
And it depends on the renter. There's obviously some people that won't rent a property unless it's got a nice boathouse. Some people don't care.
Yeah. It's really subjective. Any thoughts on any other particular amenities that you find as a manager? It's like either you got to have it, or it really brings high value. Do you think location on the lake is important?
So from a search result standpoint, one of the things that I specialize in is kind of like search engine optimization for Airbnb.
Okay.
Most of the guests that are booking through Airbnb, the first time guests.
Okay.
And so when they're searching for a property, they'll type in Lake Anna and into, Airbnb, and maybe they'll search for like a weekend at Lake Anna. And when that comes up, it's at like the center of the lake. So the properties that are closer to the center of the lake are going to get the most pings because they're
interesting.
In
They're closest to that proximity.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So the search point, it references the dead center of the lake, which is basically the 208 bridge. So it's going to it's going to put those first almost prominently in the search results,
Yeah,
closer
and
to the center.
I think people like
Interesting.
will first kind of click on the ones that are in the center of
Yep.
the screen too. So I think being kind of close to the center is advantageous
From an SEO perspective.
from an SEO perspective.
Do you ever hear renters complain about, let's say you got a property that's an outlier? Have you heard of renters complaining, well, it took too far from the grocery store, too far from restaurants? You hear any of that? Or
Not so much.
I haven't. I've never heard of that being an issue, but this is y'all's business. I wanted to see if you had ever gotten. So it's mostly being a center or the main part of the lake from an SEO perspective,
Right,
just the
yeah.
way that the searches work versus a like location on the lake.
And most people who are coming as like guests don't know a whole lot about Lake Anna. This might be their first time visiting Lake Anna. The friend said they should go to Lake Anna. They don't even know if there's a public and a private side. They're just like, oh, it's a lake. Like
Yeah.
they assume that it's like every other
One
lake
big
they might
lake,
have visited.
right.
Yeah. So yeah, I think the center of the lake from an SEO perspective is good. The other amenities that I love, high-speed internet. Oh my goodness.
It's a great point. Yeah, you need it.
People want to work from home. People want to like FaceTime their friends. People want to watch, like stream like video or the high-speed internet is really important. If you can get fiber, 100% do it every time.
And right now at Lake Anna, the whole lake does not have
Correct.
high-speed internet. It's probably half now, I would estimate. And I'm sure you've probably heard that, Firefly is
Yep.
installing fiber,
Yep.
government subsidized fiber here, and it's supposed to be in basically any day
Right.
for the remainder of the lake. But I'd say, the next 6 months or a year is probably a question mark. And some people are using Starlink in those areas and having
Starlink's really
good,
good.
good results. Elon Musk's Starlink. If there's a really bad storm, it gets a little groggy. But other than that, we've had luck with it. But no, that's a great point because a lot of people are going to come, especially for the longer short-term rentals, and they're going to want to be able to work, watch videos. They've got 8 different kids, and they all have devices, and they all want to stream at the same time. So high-speed internet it's a good point.
Yeah. There's a few other things that we do that differentiates ourselves from other properties.
Yeah.
We make sure that home is fully furnished. And by that, I mean, we buy like everything that we think people could possibly need to reduce the need to go to the grocery store or, if we have all the cooking things that they need and if we have it fully stocked with all the supplies that they need to like just enjoy themselves
Yeah.
and have fun and vacation and not feel like they're running to Food Lion every
Right.
couple hours.
So you're talking kitchen stuff, you're talking, salt, pepper, that
Yeah.
kind of thing, all of the pots and pans,
All the pots and pans. like-
irons, ironing boards, hair dryers,
Right.
all the little ins and outs.
This gets into, again, that like check the box thing.
Right.
And if you go into either Airbnb or VRBO, you'll see a list of all of the possible amenities that you can provide. And I try to check every single box. And
With the property. Make sure
with
it
the
has
property,
everything.
make sure it has everything. Like you might not get everything, but the more boxes you can check, it will not only make your guests happy because you'll have the things that they want, but also it provides a little bit of that like search engine optimization as well.
The better SEO.
Yeah, you get bumped up in the rankings if you've got more of those
Interesting.
amenities.
Interesting.
So that's one. I think fire pits is a huge one.
Oh, great
People
point.
love doing fire pits.
Great point.
And we provide wood for our guests too. But it feels like every week someone calls me like, "Hey, we're about to run out of wood," or like, "Where can I get wood
So you guys
at?"
provide wood.
Yeah, why not?
Wow, it's good. It's
Like,
good.
When people are paying $1,000 a night, like,
Yeah,
let's give them
yeah.
some wood.
Yeah.
Like,
It's so true.
oh man.
It's so true. That's a good point. And do you just have a local person that
Yeah.
services it for you guys?
There's a couple
Nice.
local people that will do it. And then we've got like a couple handymen that we work with a lot that basically service our outdoor areas and take care of any issues that we have, but will deliver wood if needed.
Nice.
The other thing that is often overlooked is parking. Like if you've got a mansion of a house, but only enough area to park 1 or 2 vehicles on your
Right.
gravel driveway,
It's gonna be
there's
problems.
going to be problems. And so
Problems with neighbors, problems with the septic tank you're parking on top of.
Yep. So I'm not a septic expert, but I know if you drive a car over a septic system, you can damage it. And
Yeah,
so
you can.
you want to have, in my opinion, as large and a flat a parking area as possible so that there's not only room for all the people to park their vehicles, and you also want it to be paved because the people are going to get out their rolly suitcase and they want to be able to roll it across the driveway.
Right.
But we also have like a pickleball net that's like, you can move around. And so if people want to like play pickleball outside, like they can do that.
So just pull it back out like under the parking area. You use it out there.
It's like a portable one. And so they can just like set it up.
But it's not a pickleball court. You're just pulling the portable net out onto the driveway.
Correct.
That's a great idea.
It is a portable net that they can set up.
Do people use it? Do you find people use it? Or do you know how much it's used?
There was one person that was like asked for it and we got it. And I think that some people use it. You have to have a nice flat driveway to use.
Okay.
Ours isn't perfect, but we have one.
So you got it just for a guest that asked for one?
I did.
Man.
Yeah. Like I buy all the sports equipment.
The scientist.
I don't know. Like
you got it all. But but other people will use that.
Use it eventually. Idea. And I was like, I'm sure that someone will use it. I'm not sure who that person is, but someone will use it. So a lot of those fun sports, outdoor activities like
water toys, you put paddle boards, stand-up paddle boards, kayaks, things like that.
Yeah, 100%. You got to have that.
Here's another question I commonly get from investors, new investors. Do I need to provide a boat? Should I leave a boat there?
So I'm not the boat expert. I don't know anything about boats. There's liability.
Says the Lake Anna property manager.
I've got a buddy that knows boats. I got a buddy that knows boats.
He's your boat guy. So you got a guy.
In life, you have to have guys or gals, like people who are experts.
Who are smarter than you. Yeah.
And I've got a person there. It's who, not how. And so my who takes care of all the boats for us.
Yeah.
And there's liability risk involved with like giving people your boat. And so we don't provide boats with any of our rentals.
Yeah, I would never.
We just partner with like a local boat rental company.
Who can provide them.
Who can provide them a boat, like deliver a boat. If you do own a boat that you want to keep at your property, like we're going to want to make sure that's like locked up so that people aren't messing with it. And we're talking about like powered boats, not like the, kayaks or canoes or those types of things.
Right.
Ones where like
gasoline powered propeller boats, big boats, ski boats, fishing boats. Right.
Yeah. And what's tricky is when people rent a boat, often there's like a duration that you have to rent for. You can't like rent a boat for a day typically. A lot of the bigger rental companies will do like minimum like 5-day rental.
Right.
And if someone's only staying for a weekend, like they don't need a 5-day rental. And then the rental boats get like booked up like way far in advance for the summer. So it's tricky to get, high quality boats delivered to the renters, but I think a lot of people are looking to at least spend some time out on the boat when they visit Lake Anna.
Yeah, and that's another, I think, positive service that you can provide is when people are booking these months in advance. I'm sure you can give them a heads up. Hey, if you want a boat, let's do it now. Yeah, sooner rather than later, because they do book up really.
Reserve your dates.
And the last few boats that are available at the last second usually aren't the ones that people are looking for.
No,
they'll work, but not the ones that they're looking for. Right. Do you find many of your renters or the renters that are coming are fishermen? Do they bring fishing stuff? Do you provide fishing stuff, fishing tackle, fishing rods, or do you let people just bring their own?
I think for that specific example, if people want to fish, they're going to bring their own fishing gear.
I think that's probably right.
We don't have any fishing gear that we provide.
Do you fish?
I fished before. I am not a fisherman. I've got a guy. One of my buddies is a game warden in Virginia, and he'll take me out fishing, and he'll do all the work, and I just have to like throw the line out.
He gets it all set, right? And if you catch a fish, he'll take it off for you?
He'll take it off for me.
Look at you, man. That's awesome.
He does it all.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so it sounds like, we've covered a lot of the amenities here and the types of homes. that short-term renter purchasers should be looking for? Anything else that you want to recommend?
Here's another hot take. I like the newer homes for rentals because there's less maintenance. Like
Yep.
things don't break down as often. And if like your HVAC breaks down while like guest is there, like that's like the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
And then also from a desirability standpoint, people like during the summer, all the homes get booked up like 100%. But in like the shoulder season, when people are like being selective about where they want to stay, they're going to book the new properties typically before they go and book an older property. So
Newer looking.
Yeah, it can be 50-year-old home as long as, it was renovated recently and like is, nice and modern looking on the inside. I think that makes a big difference for people.
That's a great
And
point.
people probably aren't going to use the kitchen, but making it look nice makes a big difference.
Yep.
Like how many guests of ours like cook while they're on vacation? Almost nobody. But like we still have like nice looking stainless steel, like new appliances. People use a dishwasher, but they're not going to use your oven. Nobody's making, well, maybe Thanksgiving, but that's about it.
Yeah, you're right. People are eating out or they're bringing it in.
Yeah.
But still, when I'm looking short-term rentals, I'm going to rent for myself. One of the things you're looking at is a kitchen. You want a nice kitchen.
Yeah.
Even though you probably won't do anything in it. It's so true. That's probably a bad thing.
Sometimes the reason why people book isn't that anything that they even use.
Yep.
Like they'll book a place because it has a hot tub and they might not even get in.
Yep. It's true. But so to emphasize, checking all the boxes, as you said, and having all the amenities, it helps to draw people, even if they're not going to use it.
Yeah.
Even if they're not going to use it. That's awesome. So the next thing I wanted to just briefly talk about is financing, specifically different lending options that are available for short-term rentals, and then talk just a minute or two about some of the important terms to negotiate when you find the property. So we've talked about how to go about finding the right one. This next part, step 2, is what to do when you find the right one, key terms to negotiate, and different financing options, and just jump in here as you wish. One point I wanted to hammer home, and this again goes back to having a local agent that's knowledgeable, is if you're looking for a short-term rental here at Lake Anna or anywhere else, you want to make sure before you pull the trigger that the short-term rentals are actually allowed and permitted where. You mentioned Baltimore, big restrictions there.
Yeah.
Lake Anna, it's still pretty wide open, but there are a couple of subdivisions that are regulating it or just not allowing it. Similarly, there are some local governments throughout the country that have banned them in different cities. Luckily and thankfully, Louisa County, Spotsylvania County, Orange County, all of the counties here at Lake Anna, it's still wide open. There's some registration requirements and taxes, commuter taxes that are paid and things like that. But, and it's worth clarifying something here. There are rumors floating around that Louisa County has imposed an occupancy limit. And it's false. And I think it grows from the short version is Louisa County Board of Supervisors a few months ago had a hearing about short-term rentals. Right. And one of the discussion topics was, should we have occupancy limits? And they said there was a resounding no. We're not going to do that. And somehow there's some rumors floating around that actually they did pass an occupancy limit. And it came up recently. We had in the purchase we were just talking about recently, the appraiser somehow heard that false rumor. This is a DSCR loan, which of course is a loan we'll talk about in a minute. It's based on the projected revenue performance, what it's going to be. Right. This appraiser had incorrectly heard that the Louisa County Board of Supervisors had imposed an occupancy limit and said, well, I got to drastically reduce the capability of this. And they denied the loan. Oh, really? Wow. Based on that false, and we got the denial back. I'm like, why was it denied? And the lender said, well, it was because of this occupancy limit thing. I said, what occupancy limit thing? Wow. And I went to the Louisa County Board of Supervisors. They wrote an official letter and said, there is no occupancy limit. Investor said, sorry, we're out. We denied it. So there was a second investor that stepped in and actually believed the Louisa County Board of Supervisors, and they gave him a great appraisal, and then the whole deal went forward. But I mean, these rumors are out there and they're real,
Yeah.
and they're impacting deals, but it's just wrong. It's just wrong. So important to know in the community you're at, or the county you're in, or the city you're in. Just
Right.
make sure, and that's going to be up to your agent. You can do your own homework, but just make sure that the short-term rentals are allowed. Financing options. One of the things to pay attention to when you're looking for short-term rentals is to be aware of that your down payment is likely going to be a lot more expensive than when you just bought your primary residence. Just as background, your primary residence down payments are going to range from, whether you're a first-time purchaser or not, they're going to range from a minimum of 0% to 3%. When you're buying an investment home, you're going to be paying at least 10% down, more likely 20 to 25% down. And that's especially to get the best terms.
Right.
You found your experience has been the same, found the same.
Oh, yeah.
So it's something to be prepared for. Now, that number scares a lot of people off, so I think it's worth emphasizing, and I just had a client do this. You can get down payment assistance in different ways to help cover that big chunk. One of them being is just taking a HELOC on another property that you might have. So he had, I think he did it on his primary residence. He basically took a mortgage out on his primary residence and used that money for his down payment on his short-term rental. He showed up to the closing table and put no money down. There were a few seller credits involved for some repairs and things like that. And then he had this HELOC coming in worth about $400,000. Right. So he bought a short-term rental without bringing a single penny to the table.
Yeah.
So you can't be scared off. I think a lot of people who are genuinely interested in purchasing a short-term rental assume and conclude, well, I'm out because I can't come up with $200,000 or $300,000. Where there are ways that you can, and there's other. So I'd encourage everybody to talk to a good lender about that, but don't cut yourself out. But usually you're going to be looking 20 to 25% down, so you got to be ready for that in some way or another. The interest rates on the standard conventional loan that's going to be used for an investment property is usually a little higher, 0.75% higher, maybe 1% higher. Right now, rates are hovering somewhere in mid-high sixes for a residential. So if you were today in February of 2024, if you're going to be buying an investment property, standard conventional loan, you'll probably be in the sevens. There are other financing products available to purchase short-term rentals. If you didn't want to go the standard route, there is a very interesting loan product called the DSCR loan. It's basically you hear people call it, it's a no document loan. DSCR stands for debt service coverage ratio. Normally when you're applying for a loan, your lender is looking at your tax returns, your income, debt to income ratio, things like that to make the decision on whether you're a good candidate. This particular product looks at an entirely different set of data. It's not looking at your documents. It's looking at what's the rental potential of this home.
Yeah.
No tax returns, nothing like that. If this home is capable of producing X dollars, then they're going to give you the loan. It's riskier, so the interest rate is even higher. It's probably going to be 2% higher than your normal primary residence home loan, but it's a great option. And then there's ARMs, adjustable rates that can sometimes give you better rates, but I just wanted to briefly address this to mainly encourage people to understand that there are different financing products available if you want to buy a short-term rental. Don't be scared away by the fact that the down payments are a little different. There's options. And if you want to learn further, contact me, contact us, and I'll put you in touch with a great lender who can review some of the products for you. And in terms of negotiations, would you say you want to be with, a busy agent? I've hammered this before, but a busy local successful agent who knows the property value of the property so that they can they can do their best to negotiate a sales price that's a little below the property value. So you're starting out with some equity. If you're with an agent who's not from the area, real estate is all local.
Yeah,
If
for
you're with
sure.
an agent who's not from the area, they're not going to know the exact value, like down to a few $1,000s. They might get you within $10,000 or $20,000, but potentially you'll be losing $10,000 or $20,000 that you could have picked up. A point you made earlier too about having an agent with experience buying short-term rentals and also owning their own will help you negotiate some other important terms, like what happens in the circumstance where there are existing reservations and how does that impact negotiations.
Yeah.
How are our clients transferred? At what point in the deal is it safe for the seller to give the information to the buyer, especially when there's contingencies in place? A lot of different terms to negotiate, again, emphasizing the importance of having an agent that's walked the path before a bunch of times. Anything to add?
We used a HELOC on our primary residence to fund the down payment on our Lake Anna
The Blue Heron?
Blue
Oh,
Heron
did you?
purchase.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And our lake home is much nicer than our primary residence. So
That's
it's
good.
interesting, but it's an investment.
Yep.
So
Yep, it is. And it allowed you the flexibility to get it.
yeah.
Yeah, most people, I mean, you don't have $300,000 or $400,000 sitting around to make a down payment. I mean, it makes it possible. A HELOC on your primary, or if you own another secondary home, just taking a HELOC on that.
Yeah.
So that's good. I'm glad you brought that up. So we've covered looking for the right short-term rental to make great passive income. We've briefly talked about what to do once you find the right short-term rental, negotiating and financing it. The third and final topic I'd like to discuss is once you've got it, how to go about managing it. So obviously our goal here is, beyond happy clients, is maximizing revenue, right?
Yeah.
Keeping the renters happy. I mean, this is a business. One of the questions I get a lot, and I want to put this out there for folks who are thinking about getting into the short-term rental investment community is, people will ask, well, how much does this one rent per night? How much would that one rent per night?
Yeah.
And there's not really an answer to that question. It's more discussed of in terms of annual revenues.
Sure.
Speak to that.
Well, and even with that, you could have two of the exact same homes next to each other. And if you've got one of the homes, they're going to have different amounts per year. They just are, based on the quality of the experience that you provide to the guests in terms of communications, in terms of listing, in terms of all the back end stuff. It makes a huge difference. And so it's really tough to say, like, this is exactly what we're going to get on a property, especially with a nightly rate.
Because their nightly rates vary.
100%.
Are we talking
This
about
is the
February
hilarious
1st or July 1st?
Some people will have a specific nightly rate that they'll run year round.
And never change it?
Never change it.
Oh my goodness. It doesn't make any sense.
It's crazy. And you know what happens? Those homes get booked for the entire summer first, right? Because they're charging the same price for that July 4th weekend that they would charge for like a January weekend when
Right.
like nobody goes to Lake Anna.
So explain how it really works. How should it work? How do you guys do it?
There's a couple of things that you should have if you want to be successful, and one is dynamic pricing. And what dynamic pricing basically means is that the price is adjusted by AI algorithms based on demand, in the same way that if you're going to go stay in a hotel on a popular weekend, like there's a lot of other people who want that as well. And so the price is going to be higher in order to help, match that supply. If you're traveling, like if you want to like fly somewhere, like the price of the ticket varies from day to day. You don't like expect the price to be $500 no matter what day you fly.
Right.
Like it's going to be higher or lower depending on how much how many other people are trying to travel during that time.
So the higher the demand, just to spell it out, the
Yep.
higher the price will be.
Exactly.
So with dynamic pricing,
Yep.
if that's in place, the July 4th weekend nightly rate is going to be much different than the January 13th nightly rate.
Correct.
Drastically different.
So there's seasonality in that. June through August is the peak summer season for Lake Anna because a lot of families are traveling, like their kids will be out of school, but also the weather is super nice. It's a great time to be on the lake. The other big driver is weeknight versus weekend. And people don't think about that one as often. So January, February, March, all the off-season months, we're still 100% occupied on Friday and Saturday nights because someone's going to come down from like Northern Virginia, Maryland, DC on a Friday night after work, enjoy themselves all day Saturday, and then leave on Sunday to go back to work on Monday. If it's a holiday weekend, they might be booking the Monday or the Friday on either end to have like a long weekend. Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, much lower demand. And if you want to book those nights, you have to drop your pricing way down to attract somebody who's willing to maybe take off work to spend some time at the lake when it's cold outside. Huh?
Yep.
So by adjusting the pricing depending on demand, you're able to get a lot more out of the home than what you would otherwise. And
this is you have a software application that does this,
Yeah.
or are you manually doing this yourself?
you have to use software.
Okay.
You put in a lot of like customization into the software and it adjusts over time. The one that I use for Lake Anna is Price Labs. It is the best because they have more rentals here in this area than any other price adjustment software.
So it's got a lot of reference points.
It's got data to pull in. Yeah. So that's one I use. I like it a lot. It's pretty simple to use. There are other good tools. That one also is one where you pay like a monthly subscription fee instead of like a percentage of revenue. There are
Okay.
some other pricing softwares, they'll take like a percentage of revenue.
Wow.
And that can be really expensive really
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
Price Labs for the win there.
So, bottom line though, the way that you evaluate the income potential of a property
Yeah.
is, and the way we talk about it down here, just as an educational point, is what is its estimated capability of doing in a year, or
Yeah.
what did it do last year? It's annual numbers,
Right.
not like nightly, not weekly. It's annual numbers. It did
Yeah.
150 last year. It did 200 last year. It did 90 last year.
That's usually the easiest way to think about it.
Yeah, because it's changing all year.
Right. And as a just general guideline, typically at Lake Anna, you're going to expect about 10 to 15%. And by that, I mean, if your home's worth $1 million, if you bought it for $1 million, I'd expect you to be able to get somewhere between $100,000 to $150,000 of rental income in the year. So that's 10 to 15% of the home's
That's a
value.
great back and napkin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not perfect.
Yeah.
There's going to be homes that you'll buy for $1 million that will do,
It'll do
more
more.
than that. There will be homes that you could pay more than $1 million that won't even do $100,000 of, income. And again, it's all dependent on who's managing it, but
Who's
those are
managing it
some-
and what's in it?
what's
and
in
the
it.
amenities.
Yeah.
Okay, but 10 to 15%.
I think that's kind of the rule of thumb that I typically look at.
Very good. Very good. We have talked a bit about one of the properties that you manage, and that was, I think it's 54. That's Blue Heron.
Yep. Blue Heron.
Okay. Let's pull this back out.
Sure.
And I just want to spend a couple of minutes talking about a couple specific properties just to give the listeners and the viewers some context, almost a couple of case studies on some of the ones. So this is Blue Heron, right?
Yeah, that's my place.
Okay.
Blue
Yeah.
Heron
And
Hideaway.
this is the one that I helped you buy. And when you bought this, you said a minute ago you used a HELOC
I did. Yeah.
on your primary
Yep.
to cover the down payment on this.
Correct.
So you had minimal to no out of pocket coming in.
Zero out of pocket.
Oh, see, that's great.
We
That's great.
also did some improvements after we purchased it, and we used the HELOC for those improvements as well.
Nice.
So-
Very, very good. It made it possible.
Yeah,
it made
for
it
sure.
possible. And Your this is even more impressive. The basement is still not finished.
Right.
So I mean, you've still got so
Storage
much
area
more
down there.
potential and yeah, and
Yeah.
storage area. But I mean, as eventually, if you, I mean, do you think if you finish it and turn it into this or that, does that push your? Do you think it pushes your ROI up?
I think so. I think we could probably finish the basement, add in one or two more bedrooms and a game room,
Yeah,
maybe a movie
a little
theater.
movie room or some
Maybe.
combo game room, movie
I
room.
think the game room though is what I would do in the basement.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd probably be able to increase the revenue as well for the property.
The game room is popular at our short term rental. One of our short term rentals here, the one we converted the garage into the game room, and
Yeah.
people do like that. And I see we've talked about this briefly before, but there's a picture of your beach here, and that's a
Yeah.
beach that you had installed. That that wasn't there when you bought it.
Correct. Yeah.
You had a local company
Yep.
install it, and then a local company did the hardscaping there too.
Correct. Yeah. We used JB Vaughn to do our beach.
Yep.
Good guy.
Yeah, he is. I know JB.
Yeah.
Awesome.
He did our beach, did a great job. There's some other good people too that will do beaches.
Yeah.
We did, we invested, we made it really nice. When the kids go out to play on that beach, they can like dig down, like build a sandcastle,
Right.
build
See,
like
it's
a
not like an
hole.
inch deep.
It's
right?
not an inch deep, right? Yeah. It's like,
And you buy white sand by the truckload, just in case anybody doesn't know. You say, I
Right.
want 3 loads, 6 loads, 10 loads, and they bring it in as deep as you want, and it's, usually probably $500 or $600 per load. And you bring it in, have someone build a little retaining wall there at the back. That's good because it prevents runoff when
Right.
it rains.
Right.
And it doesn't turn into a mud pit down there. And it's great. And this is an awesome spot for kids, and they can just wander right into the water, little ones who can barely walk.
yeah. It's
Wear-
like beach
wear a life
entry is
jacket.
what we call it.
Yeah, beach entry.
It's like slow, gradual entry. And we have to get new sand every now and then because, our sand will either wash away or go into the
Mm-hmm.
water. So, once a year, we'll have someone come out and put some
Yeah,
more
we
sand
do
in.
the same. Yeah, we do the same. And then what do you roughly know, what your annual debt service is on that?
Ooh. I think our monthly is like our interest rate on that one was like in the 4s when we bought it.
Yeah, so it's
And
good.
we financed about $1 million, I believe.
Okay.
So I think our
Probably
monthly
around
payments,
5 or
like,
6.
I think our monthly payments between 6 and 7.
Okay. So let's call it 7 to
Yeah.
be conservative.
Yeah.
That means over the year it's you're to pay and own the house, it's 84 grand.
Yeah, that's probably about right.
And your income in 2023 exceeded 200.
Oh yeah.
So that's just an example of the stark difference some of these have between your monthly mortgage obligations and
Right.
what it's actually bringing in.
Right.
I mean, it's over $100,000 above and beyond your monthly mortgage obligations.
Exactly. And another important thing to think about is as part of that mortgage payment, we're also like paying down principal too. So over time, our equity will grow,
Increasing.
increasing, right? And then also over time, the amount of rental income we can get from year to year should increase over time.
Right.
That was our first full year of operation. We did over 240K of revenue. We're going to do hopefully more in the future, especially with inflation and all that stuff. So the amount of cash flow that you have will increase over time. The longer you own the property, the more 5-star reviews you have, the more guests you have that are trying to come back again year after year. And so it's a little bit of a snowball there.
It's one of the many additional benefits. Yeah, you're right. It snowballs. Now, initially, did you talk to any other property management companies at Lake Anna about managing it?
We did. We talked to a large national property management provider that actually does the most properties at Lake Anna.
And did they provide to you an estimate of what they thought that property could generate as far as an annual revenue?
They did. Yeah. So they basically quoted us an amount that I'd have to look at what the exact amount was.
It was low 100s.
It was.
They quoted you somewhere between 113 and 136.
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
And that was before their fees too, I think.
That's correct. And the fee they were going to charge, if I was 22%,
22%.
which is pretty standard around here. I tell people 20-ish.
Yeah.
But the local property, kind of the leader, just in terms of quantity, what business here does the most. Like you said, they're a national company.
Right, yeah.
But they were quoting you in the low 100s, and you
Right.
came out swinging in yourself, and you did the low 200s.
Yeah.
Arguably low to mid 200s.
Right, yeah.
So props to you. Props to you.
Honestly, a little surprised. Like you ask the expert, like, hey, what are we going to do? And they give you a number and they say, this is our range. And we did, over 60% above the high end of the range that they provided to us. So we were really happy
Kudos.
with that.
Hey,
Yeah.
the scientist. So you ended up deciding to self-manage, and you guys crushed it.
Correct. Yeah. And in terms of the management fee, we manage homes for other people.
Mm-hmm.
We do 20%. For my home, I charge myself 20%.
Mm-hmm.
For my partner, he's got some properties where he is a partial owner of them.
Mm-hmm.
He charges 20% to those properties. Like we charge 20% to all of our clients. And I honestly think that's a fair rate, especially for
It
the
is.
amount of value that we provide. We treat the properties like our own.
Mm-hmm.
Like every home that we manage, we just pretend it's our own and
That's awesome.
try to set it up for the best success that
That's
they
awesome.
can have.
And the quote you got from the other group was 22%. It was a little higher than yours.
Sometimes they increase or decrease maybe their rates. Like we're just very transparent and straightforward, and we
Awesome.
try to be fair if we can.
Let's look at case study number 2. Let's go to your Tyler Point.
Yeah.
And that one's called Above the World, Around. Let's look at case study number 2, A World Away. So we're looking here at the photo. I see the front of the house. I'm very familiar with this house because I represented the buyers when they found this house as well. This is beautiful. This is on the public side,
It is,
all the way
yeah.
down at the big end. One of the premier spots on the lake. Nice, big, deep water, clear water. Huge beach. I think there was something approaching like 1,000 feet of waterfront here at this one. It's tremendous. 750 feet, something like that.
It's
They've
a
got
lot of shoreline.
big
for sure.
beach. You can see the picture from above. You can see it's a nice rounded point lot. Large house. As I recall, this is like 6,000 or 7,000 square feet. So this is a bigger one.
It's huge. It
But
has, like,
they-
multiple apartments in there.
Yeah, it's really cool. Beautiful views. But they started with a different property management company, did they not?
Yeah.
And how did it come to you?
The primary reason why they came to me was because I'm a real person, and they were trying to like get in contact with the property manager. Like they had issues and questions, and they just weren't getting like the time and attention that they deserved. Like this property is unbelievable, amazing.
Yeah, it
I
really
honestly
is.
think it's one of the top 5 in terms of revenue generation potential at Lake Anna.
I
And
agree.
they just weren't doing that. And part of it was, part of it was marketing. Like they weren't properly like set up to market the property. So we came in, did a little bit of like decor modification, and then just like got a fantastic professional photographer to just take some amazing photos, including some drone photos that I think are really nice that like draw people in. They're like, wow, this looks like it's an
Yeah.
oasis in the middle of nowhere. Like
Yes.
it's some unbelievable photos. Like I got
Yeah,
a
this
guy
drone
that
shot
asked
here is
me,
great.
He's like, "Are these CGI photos because they don't look real?" I was like, "No, this is 100% real."
This is a remarkable property, and the owners of this are the sweetest,
Amazing
nicest.
people.
Aren't they cool? They're
Yeah.
they're such cool people, but yeah, I'm familiar with their concerns and their complaints because they voiced. I was their agent, and they reached out to me, about voicing. And to be fair to this other company, like they are a national company, as you said,
100%.
and they are very nice, very well-meaning people, but they are stretched so thin,
Yeah.
because they have so many properties here,
Right.
and frankly, I think that they're just under-resourced and understaffed, and they've got like a young lady that's responsible for these 30 homes, and here there's another guy who's responsible for these 40 homes.
Right.
And and it's just impossible with those numbers. And the benefit that you bring, as you highlighted earlier, I mean, you're managing 9 or 10 houses, and
Right.
you can give them that care and attention.
For sure.
But they contacted me and said, "Do you have any recommendations?" And I said, "You got to talk to the scientist."
Yeah, right. So with that one's number one on, according to RankBreeze, on Airbnb.
What's RankBreeze?
RankBreeze is a software that we use, and it basically scrolls through Airbnb searches and pulls out like the rankings, like what number
Based on
property
reviews, or based on like the
based
SEO
on
type?
SEO searches.
Okay.
So like, in Google, like if you search for like, I don't know, house at Lake Anna, you're gonna get like 20 results, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're gonna click on number one and number two, right? Like you're not going to the second page for sure.
Right.
Zero
Right.
chance. This one, when you search on Airbnb, is number one. I think if you have at least 12 people and you search Lake Anna, whether it's week or weekend, it's just number one.
Wow.
And like it gets a lot of eyeballs and a lot of happy people too. It's an amazing property. Like I love it when people book it. That place is like booking up like crazy.
Has the revenue stream changed since it went from property management company A to yours to B?
That's a tough question to answer. In full transparency, I only took over the property towards the end of 2023.
Okay.
And so there were a number of future reservations that were already in the books.
Sure.
And so I had like all the weekends were booked because like people want to come on the weekends.
Yeah.
I did a really good job of filling in a lot of those weekday rentals with guests.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very confident we're going to outperform this year versus what they did last year.
Oh yeah.
I just don't have any like hard data that says like, yeah, we've already done that. We've already accomplished that. I can show you my booking data, which is unreal at this point for the year, but I haven't fulfilled all those obligations yet.
Sure.
People haven't stayed there. They could still cancel. Who knows?
Sure. But the booking is looking very promising for this one.
Yeah, fantastic. And that's one thing that we do slightly different than some other companies and maybe even some other people.
Mm-hmm.
People will book the best value typically. And so if they want to stay at Lake Anna, they'll search for maybe the week that they want to stay at Lake Anna in the summer, and they'll book that vacation. The further out you book that vacation, the more available options you have. So like maybe 100% of the homes are available if you book like a year in advance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is the properties that are like underpriced get booked up way in advance. And so like they'll be like fully booked for the summer and it's still like December of the year prior. So like they're getting booked so far in advance because they're like priced way too low. So usually what happens with us, and sometimes owners can get a little bit like anxious about this. And like I have to reassure them like, we'll be good. We'll be fine. I promise. Like all the homes at Lake Anna from like June through August are booked 100%. The question is, what nightly rate are you going to get? And the way that we can get the true value for what your property is worth is if we're willing to wait just a little bit until all of those best value properties, like underpriced properties, are booked for the summer. And now the person in like typically like January through March is our peak booking season, with March being like the biggest booking month of all, where the options are limited. If you want, you can stay in this amazing property or you can not stay in it. It's not like you have 5, 10 different options that like truly meet your requirements. And so I still feel like we provide value to the guests, because when you look at our reviews, you can see that we're getting 5-star reviews, which means that like the value that we're creating for our guests is greater than what they're paying. But we're able to extract a little bit more in terms of like a higher nightly rate and gross income than we would if we were, the first homes that were booked.
And the way that you actually effect that strategy, is it by just maintaining the higher price point, or is it just not making it available, pulling it completely off, and then dumping it onto the market in April or May?
I've seen both methods used. What we do is we have like a far out premium, meaning if you're going to book like a year in advance, it might be 25% more than what it was this year. So like if you're staying at our home in like July 4th week this year and you try to book for next year, it's going to be maybe 20 plus percent more for next year because it's so far out.
Okay.
And then as those days get closer and closer, it comes
It'll
down.
inch down.
It inches down over time. Yeah.
Okay, so would you recommend, so the premium nights, you just maintain that price high,
Right.
and then the lower priced properties get gobbled up, as you said, early.
Yep.
And then once you get March, April, then when there aren't many left,
Right.
like your clients' properties, and then those
They
that
get
makes
booked.
sense. And if you need to, you can inch it down.
Right. And it is
You're
inching
still
down
safe.
automatically. Like
Okay.
the software is like doing that in the background.
Okay. But to accomplish that strategy, do you have to tell the software,
Yep.
I want to start at a higher point?
Yes. Yeah, those are customizations that are built into Price Labs that I've honed over time in terms of like base nightly rate, in terms of what type of premium we want to charge for certain distance in the future, and like how we want to step that down I step it down based on occupancy. So if a home is like 80% booked in a certain period, the rate's going to be higher than if they're like 20% booked. And so as they start to fill up their calendar, the rates also inch up a little bit.
Right. That makes sense. You're taking advantage of the demand
Yeah.
that's going to exist because of the low supply available.
Yeah, it's just adaptive pricing.
It's scientific, man. It's scientific. Let's shift topics. Anything else you want to say about Tyler or just or Blue Heron or any of the other, properties, from a case study standpoint?
I think also one of the things that's really important is like the guest experience and being responsive to people when they reach out with an issue or they have questions.
And we're going to get more into that. I've got a whole part here. I want to give you an opportunity to talk about it. But in terms of like your case studies, are there any? You gave me a stack of photos here. Are there any others that you want to highlight or address? We talked about Blue Heron. We talked about Cove Beach.
That's a new one that is being closed on in March, and we're hoping to get it live for this summer.
Nice.
Yeah, I've
Nice.
got
It's
a family
beautiful.
friend that's buying that property. It's brand new. It's right over there near Blue Heron and near Big Dream Big Oasis in that cove.
Elk Creek Landing.
Yeah, Elk
Also
Creek Landing. Yeah.
That's awesome. And it sounds like there's a chance, based on your comments earlier, that come spring and summer, you'll be taking on more people. 'Cause
Yeah.
you'll have a bigger staff and more time to dedicate to it.
Right. Yeah. A few people maybe.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So let's shift to talking about, kind of the key ideas and components for managing a successful short-term rental. If somebody reaches out to you, and I'm thinking chronologically here, Dan, somebody reaches out to you and they say, okay, we want you to manage our property for us.
Okay.
Is the first step, is it a site visit? Is it a contract that you all negotiate? What happens first?
We're going to want to visit the property
Okay.
first.
To see if it's something you want to take, to give them an estimate of what it'll do.
Yeah, I give free estimates, meaning
Okay.
that if someone reaches out to me and they're like, hey, what do you think our property could do on an annualized basis? I can give them a revenue range that I feel very comfortable with, that I can do, that we could do. Obviously, I can't tell them how well they're going to do or if they went with somebody else, but I can tell them
What you're going
what
to do.
we're kind of capable of doing with that property. Yeah. And I'll want to visit in person to walk the property and understand where the opportunities are and what the true potential is. Sometimes if you're just like looking at photos online, it's hard to truly like understand what the experience would be like for guests and what the potential is. So we'll visit the property, and then there's two important things. There's like, is the property a good fit for our portfolio? Meaning like we have a certain type of clientele and a lot of times they're indifferent between some of the properties that we have. So like they might say in one of our properties this year, but next year they want to book a different one. They might have a smaller group, larger group, those types of things. And so just want to make sure it's a good fit for the guests and the clients that we typically have. And then the other important thing is like the owner fit. Like I want to make sure that I can work with this person. And honestly, like it's great if they can just like kind of hand me the keys and let me do my thing. Some owners are like that. Some owners are just like, they want mailbox money. They don't like, they'll like text me like, hey, well, I'm going to block off these days because I'm going to visit. And then like, that's all I hear from them. Like those owners are great. Like, honestly, I love them. Like I send them a big check in the mail. Like they're happy. Like, and then I take care of everything for them. But there are some other owners who like, I mean, this is like their biggest investment of their life. Like they care a lot about it. And so like they want to be like intimately involved in like all of the decisions from like how to furnish it and like what the rate should be. And so like there's a fine line, but like I'm only willing to put up with so much in terms of like their involvement. And I love to like educate. I love to like work with people, but like
you have to have the time to work to do the job.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like you said, there's a balance.
Right.
So once you conclude, okay, this is a property that I'll take into the portfolio.
Right.
The guest likes the estimate. The next stage is an agreement of some kind.
Yep.
Okay.
We've got a agreement that we use. There are some key terms for our agreement. We kind of talked about this a little bit earlier. One is the like management fee, which I've already said. And you can talk to different people. Like they might have higher, lower numbers. Ours is 20%. Like I'm very transparent about what that is.
Yep.
Like, the other key terms that you might want to think about are like what's truly being provided. Like for us, like I said, I like to be full service. Like I'm just going to take care of everything for you. If there are like major expenses, like things that are going to cost more than $500, I'm going to get your input because you know, I want to get your approval for that item.
Right.
So that's one thing that, you know, I have in there. But like when you think about it, like most of these properties will have like between 80 and 100 different groups or different reservations throughout the year. And so there's a lot of turnovers and like really like we're very involved in this property. So it's a lot of work, you know. You have to decide if like you personally want to do it yourself as the owner or whether you want somebody else to handle it for you. And I'm good either way. Like I'll help you. I'll walk you through how you could do it yourself. The other thing you want to talk about with somebody is like expenses, like who pays for what expenses. And for us, it's typically we have the owner pay for pretty much everything. And so in terms of like the owner's paying the utility bills, like I can help like connect them with great service providers, like lawn care providers, those types of things. But it was just easier if the
owner's paying for them. Yeah.
Paying for those types of things.
Yeah, that's pretty standard.
Another thing that like we like do is we want our homes to be fully stocked. Like I had a really bad experience when we went vacationing one time. I showed up to like this home that we paid a lot of money to stay at the beach. And like we got there and like there wasn't any toilet paper in the house. And like we were staying there for a week with a large group. Like I just gotten there from like a long drive. Like it was the worst experience
that's
possible.
not good.
And like toilet paper is so cheap, so inexpensive. Like it doesn't make sense to like not have like an abundance of those basic supplies in the homes. So we do make sure that the homes are fully stocked, and then we'll invoice the owner monthly for those. So again, the owner typically takes care of like all of the expenses there.
Okay. So you got 20%.
Yeah.
You're going to negotiate or make clear they're going to be paying for everything as opposed to you paying for it and getting reimbursed or somehow. And I think that's good. Are there any terms that you negotiate or impact about how involved they will or won't be? I've seen some of your materials, co-hosting and things like that. Can you just briefly address that?
So they can, I've got some owners that want to like see reservations come in. I've got some owners.
So they can be notified.
They want to like,
See
they
an
want to know
email
how
or
things are
something.
going.
Yeah,
They want to
some
get
of mine are that way.
updates.
Yeah.
They want to get more regular like check-ins to say like, oh, okay, like we just got this huge booking. Like that's great news. They want to like, celebrate or something. I don't know. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and we can do that. And I try to share those like wins with people whenever we can. Um,
It's a security blanket. They see the reservations coming in.
yeah,
Makes them feel better.
exactly. And some people want to see like how much they've booked for the year. I've got some software that will help me to provide like data that they can use to like pay their taxes and
Okay.
that type of thing. I provide them with like very detailed reports that they
Mm-hmm.
can use.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then the other important aspect that you want to think about when you're choosing a property manager, and this is maybe the second most important thing, is like duration of commitment.
Mm-hmm.
And by that I mean like termination, at will type agreement. So
Mm-hmm.
like, are you signing up for like a year with
Mm-hmm.
this person where they like manage your property for the next year,
Mm-hmm.
or is it 90 days?
Is there a commitment of
What's
some
the
kind?
commitment?
What do you guys have?
We've done some different things. When we initially started, I was doing just 30 days because I knew that I could deliver and like I wasn't worried about it.
Right.
We've upped it to 90 days because there's a lot of upfront investment from us to like get your home ready, like get your listings ready. We just want to make sure there's at least a little bit of a commitment there.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, like if someone really wanted out, like we'd let them out. But
But they're not going to want out.
no.
Not with the results you guys are
Yeah.
producing. How does maintenance work? And kind of two sub questions.
Sure.
How do you learn if maintenance is needed, or investigate between guests if you
Right.
do, or do you just wait till it's, a complaint comes up? And then B, when maintenance is needed, how is Dan the man in there rolling the sleeves up with a, how does that? No, you got a guy.
I got a guy,
You got a
yeah.
guy.
I got two guys. A couple guys. So we have a couple of people that are like boots on the ground for us,
Mm-hmm.
and our cleaning team is our first line of defense because they are in the properties typically once or twice per week. And
Right.
so we have dedicated cleaners for each of our homes.
Mm-hmm.
And by dedicated, I mean primary. Like they don't clean the home 100% of the time, but at least 90% of the time, it's the same person in there.
They're familiar with it.
They're familiar with it. They know if like the Xbox goes missing, like they
Mhm.
know if something's damaged. They'll like let us know immediately. And also we have really good like communications with the guests. So if there are any issues, the guests should let us know
Mhm.
about those.
Good.
And things happen.
Of course.
We have insurance that helps to cover any like damage, but when there is damage, guests are generally understanding. Like as long as you're upfront with them and you work proactively to solve the issue, they're going to be happy. There was a property, it was actually this a world away.
Mm-hmm.
There was a pipe issue, and so there was a water that was like leaking from a ceiling onto one of the beds in one of the bedrooms.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's not the call you want to get.
No,
But
it happens. They're
it
houses.
does. Yeah. So we like just were very proactive, very transparent with guests because the person who told us was like departing that day. And I had a guest arriving that same day in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
So I called the guest who was arriving up and explained the situation. And ultimately, like the guest worked with us in order to like have somebody come to the home, fix it, take care of things. Like we made it right for them, and they were still able to have a fantastic, enjoyable 5-star experience vacation. And like they were understanding. Like stuff happens, but as long as you do your best to like resolve it and like be mindful of your
Make
guests,
it right.
make it right for them, then you're okay. And usually I'll give the guest an option, like, hey, do you want us to send a handyman over there if the roof's not leaking? Like if it's something that can be taken care of later, I'll say, hey, do you want us to send someone over right now, or
Potentially interrupt your privacy or wait.
wait until after you depart?
Then
And-
they're in the driver's seat. They get to decide.
Give them the option, yeah. So
Good.
we'll get somebody in, fix things, and keep everybody happy.
How do you advertise your properties that you manage?
Yeah, so marketing, Airbnb is the number one lead source for short-term rentals.
Okay.
So over the majority of our business, the first time guests come through Airbnb.
Okay.
And we also have optimized our like listings and marketing for that platform to just rank high, and we've got more reviews in Airbnb than anywhere else.
Okay.
I'm an Airbnb superhost, which basically means that, well, it doesn't mean as much as what it used to be, but I've got like over 400 reviews in my 4.96 maybe average rating out of 5.
Wow.
Like it's just like really high. And so people look at the reviews and they actually look at the quantity of reviews more than the number. So that
Interesting.
so hear me out. Like if you're on like Amazon, you're like, oh, hey, I want to buy something. Like you want to find like that product that's like 1,000
Over
five-star
1,000,
reviews,
right?
Yeah,
Not
like,
8.
Not 8. You're like,
Right.
oh, 8 reviews. I don't know if it's any good.
Yeah.
But if it's got like 1,000, you're like, oh, okay, like this is a good product. Even
People
if
take the same approach with rentals.
same approach with rentals, they'd rather see like 100 reviews with like 4.5 stars than see like 5 reviews with 5 stars, like because they're always questioning like,
Is it time tested? Yeah.
right. And so that's one thing that's helpful is like because I'm an Airbnb superhost, like that's credibility for guests. Even if I don't have any reviews for a property, they can look and see, oh, like Dan's got like hundreds of reviews for these other properties that he manages.
Oh, so so that ties in.
Yeah, they see that I'm a superhost, which is like a special emblem that I get, and then also they can go to my profile and see all the other properties that I manage and see that I
The successes.
provide a good experience. And the reviews are tied
Interesting.
to the person, not the property, for Airbnb specifically.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So superhost status means a lot. It helps me rank higher. A lot of our properties are, this is a new thing on Airbnb. It's like guest favorite properties. And so basically there's certain criteria that you have to meet, but if you've got a great home and guests enjoy themselves, you'll be a guest favorite. And those homes also appear at like the top of the search results.
Nice.
So there's a lot of things that you can do to really kind of like make sure that your property is up there. And we do that, right? Like that's really important. We also do VRBO. What's crazy is that VRBO has an option for an annual subscription. So you can pay $699 per year and then not pay any like other fees to VRBO. Like Airbnb, you pay 14% fee to Airbnb for all your bookings there. And so I have our pricing set up in the back end so that our listings on Airbnb are 14% more expensive than if you book through VRBO because I'm offsetting
cover
that cost there. And people still go to Airbnb and book our home there.
Wow.
Even though they could find the same exact property on VRBO.
They probably just don't know.
They don't know. I'd say
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'd say Airbnb it's a better platform. Like the software, the interaction, it's just overall a better experience for the guest.
So those are the main 2 platforms you advertise on.
Right. And then we do direct bookings as well. So lakeanna.org is our direct booking website that we have our properties on. And typically after someone has found us through Airbnb or VRBO and stayed with us and had a great time, we will retain that client and have them rebook directly the next time because we can cut out some of those fees
Yes.
on their next reservation, and they can save money and still enjoy the same great home.
Airbnb ever complain about that?
Airbnb is our primary lead generation magnet.
Right.
I do not do anything that could possibly jeopardize
Sure.
that as a client. And so anybody that books through us through Airbnb, like we let that alone. Like
Right.
it's only
You abide by all rules and
I abide by
regulations.
all of the rules and regulations. Like
For the record.
yeah. After they've stayed with us, if they want to rebook direct, that's great. And I have people that will rebook through Airbnb because that's what they're used to. That's what they're familiar with. So it just kind of depends, but that's usually what we do is we direct the people who are rebooking to book direct next time.
And okay, so we've talked about, so it sounds like primarily you guys advertise on Airbnb and VRBO, which are
Yep.
the two big hits. And then some customers do direct bookings with you guys. But that's
Yeah.
the bulk of your,
Some people try to do every platform, and I feel like we're better off if we concentrate on the two big ones.
and optimizing yourself
Yeah.
SEO wise.
Yeah.
I think that's a smart strategy. Well, it's obviously working for you. Pricing, we've already talked about how the dynamic pricing
Yeah.
works. We've talked about this. So, just to be clear for people that are listening, in terms, one of the services that you provide is, I mean, you handle all of the guest communication
Correct.
or someone who's thinking about renting and they have
Right.
questions about the property.
Yep.
Like the owner doesn't do any of that. You've got it. It's under control. You guys do it. If there's a problem, when there's a renter there, you're responding to maintenance issues.
Right.
You handle all that.
Every now and then a guest will ask a question and I don't know the answer. And so I'll have to
Right.
reach out to the owner and say, hey, how does X, Y, and Z thing work? And so, for example, there was like a hot tub and for whatever reason it wasn't heating properly. And I reached out to the owner and said, hey, our guests are experiencing difficulty with this hot tub.
What
What's
do we
the
do?
deal? Yeah.
Right,
and,
right.
and they were able to help us out. But 95 to 99% of communications are handled by me or by us. Yeah.
You guys,
Other critical thing is when someone wants to book your home, like they are like a hot lead. When they reach out to you, like asking you questions about the property, like it's important to like hit the iron while it's hot.
yeah,
If you have to wait like hours or days to hear back from somebody about whether you can stay in that property,
they're going to lose interest.
they're going to lose interest or they've already booked something else.
Yeah.
So people will like reach out to like a couple homes and be like, hey, we're interested in coming here for the week. And like I am like responding right away.
Yep.
And
That's good.
That's really important.
That's good. It's the same in my business in real estate. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, if people are interested, you need to give them the information right now. And it's amazing how many agents will wait a day or two to respond, and then they're scratching in their head and confused why the lead's gone or they used another agent. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. If you want the reservation, if you want the sale, you got to be responsive, and
Yeah.
then, and you're serving your client best in that circumstance as well. What's involved in turnover, and you handle it all.
Right. So if I were to manage on my own, there would be a couple things that I would have. I'd have a property management system, which basically takes care of taking Airbnb, VRBO, and like putting it into like one system.
Okay.
And the thing I would recommend for that is Hospitable. It's amazing for that, and also has communications that are in like one central inbox is what we'll call it. If with pricing, we already talked about Price Labs being the best. For turnovers, we typically use a software product called Turno, Turno, and it automates a lot of that for us in terms of it looks at when our reservations are and when people are departing, and it will notify our cleaning team of when those homes need to be cleaned.
Okay.
And so most of like the scheduling of the cleaners is done automatically
Nice.
and accurately. Like that prevents me from making mistakes. It notifies cleaners if there's like a new reservation, like last minute, they'll still get notified of a needed cleaning. And then with that software application, there's a checklist that the cleaning team uses when they go through the home. And so they'll go through the checklist and make sure they do everything properly. And then they even take photos of the property and of the specific things that I want. So
Nice.
I'll get like, 10, 12 photos of a property, like one of each bedroom typically, and then of like some important areas. And so if there are ever like damages to the property or issues, like we find out very quickly.
And you're supervising the whole
Yes.
scheduling process as well.
Yeah.
And then how does the linen change out work and getting those cleaned?
Linen's a tough one for us specifically as we're trying to scale. We're kind of like getting to the point where we need to do a combined linen solution. So there are two really great linen providers at Lake Anna.
And when linens, we're talking about bed sheets, bedding, and we're talking about your towels and washcloths and things like that.
Yes.
Getting washed and then getting new ones back in.
Correct. Yeah, because you need fresh linens for
Yeah.
every new guest stay.
Sheets and towels.
We work with Lakeside Linens. There's also Lake Anna Linens. Those are the two big providers here at
Yeah.
Lake Anna.
Shout out to
And
the Snyders.
yeah, both great companies. And there are people that will do them on site. So
Oh, okay.
for some of our smaller properties, we can like take all the linens and towels and throw them in a washer and have them like clean and ready
While they're cleaning the
while they're
house, they can
cleaning the
get, yeah,
house.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
For some of the big properties,
It's too much, takes too long.
exactly. And so we have to outsource that. And right now, like I said, we're working with some of the linen providers. Eventually, I think we'll want to have a centralized place where we do the linens for all of our properties. But that's not something that we have today.
Soon, soon. And
Yeah.
then and then I guess any leftover maintenance that needs to be done, you can do it in the gap during
Right.
turnover as well. Unless
Turnover
it's
is
an
great
emergency or
for
something.
doing maintenance, and we also have our handymen visit like the outdoor areas, typically on Sundays, to just make sure that the beach is nice, that there's no trash out there, that type of thing. We this is funny. We almost bought a laundromat, the mineral laundromat.
Yep.
We
I was
got
just thinking that. I
so
was like,
close
man,
to buying that
it's a
thing.
good idea. You own
Yeah.
it.
So we missed out, but it's in good hands.
There'll be other opportunities.
Yeah.
I'm getting a little out of order, but I imagine, let's say that I buy a property,
Yeah.
short-term rental, and I turn it over to you to manage. Are you going to help me with local government filings that need to be done?
Sure. So the responsibility is with the owner in our contract, but I give you and will help you with everything that you need to do.
Right, because you
So,
know what to do. Like, I'm
yeah,
new, I'm an idiot, I don't know what's required. You can tell me, this is the form, this
right,
is where you send it, this
right.
is how you fill it out.
Here are the numbers that I'm seeing that I would use on the form, maybe even. But you were responsible as the owner to like fill that in and pay that, or either pay the transient occupancy tax or register your property. I'll hold your hand, but like ultimately
But
you're
yeah, it's your
responsible.
responsibility.
Yeah,
As we're wrapping up,
sure.
and then I'll give you an opportunity to add anything else that you want to before we wrap up. But the short-term rentals, as we all know, can also be and are a controversial subject.
Yeah,
People often, I think, have this image, and it's usually a mistaken image, but image of these are frat house parties, and they're going to explode and destroy my peace and quiet.
right.
Speaking from experience, I mean, I live next door to a short-term rental, and it's been a short-term rental for 2 or 3 years, and with the exception of 2 evenings, like it's been great. It's like legacy guests, parents, grandparents, everybody's getting together and they're quiet. And they're quiet. I mean, there was one time late at night where there was some noise late at night, and it was easy. I just picked up the phone and called the owner, and they
Right.
stopped it. And then the other instance was a July 4th. There was an errant firework that ended up in my front yard, but it was an accident, and it was it was kind of funny what happened. But I say all that to say I think that there is an inaccurate image out there of short-term rentals get a bad name and they get a bad rap around here and elsewhere. So what steps do you guys take or can you take as a short-term owner to keep the neighbors happy, to keep the community satisfied with the way it's being managed?
That's something that's super important because if we want to continue to be able to run our business, the short-term rental, we need to have our neighbors be happy with
Yeah.
that. So we go out of our way to make sure that our neighbors are happy with us. And that starts with being proactive with communication to those neighbors. We reach out to them, we say, hey, we're going to be renting this out on a short-term basis. We give them contact information for us so they can
Good.
reach out to us if there are ever any issues.
Good.
And
So the
just,
neighbors have your contact info.
yes,
Smart.
and generally just being a good neighbor. So we're active in the communities and neighborhoods where we have homes. We give back to those neighborhoods because at the end of the day, it's really important for us to just continue to be able to operate there.
What steps do you take to encourage your guests
Yeah.
to be respectful? And
We do guest screening really well, which helps out a lot with
oh,
that.
you screen.
Yeah. We actually use this thing called Superhog, which does guest verification screening, and it also
Okay.
provides damage insurance.
Okay.
We also have experience doing this for a long time, and so we can pretty quickly pick out the problem potential guests. Um, every week I get somebody messaging me saying, "Hey, I'd like to have a small 150 person wedding in your backyard." And it's like, no, like
That's not gonna happen. My house will be a pile of charred ashes at the end, and the
I'm so
neighbors will
sorry.
not be happy.
Yeah. But
Well, that's good. That's a nice layer that people have to go through to get to your properties.
right. And then there's also like education. We educate the guests about the rules and provide them with a good neighbor policy so they understand what it means to behave properly while they're staying in one of our properties.
Good. Good. And they get that in an email, or that's out at the property itself.
Yeah, we have a contract that guests sign, and
Mm-hmm.
it is explicitly laid out in that contract.
Nice.
And then another thing we do is our minimum age for renters is 25 years old.
Okay.
So that helps out a little bit. But yeah, we do our best to screen as best we can. But
What about minimum night stays as a screening tool?
yeah, that one's tough because you're missing out on profit maximization if you increase your minimum nightly stay. We have a lot of groups that will stay for 2 nights, Friday and Saturday night. We very, very, very rarely ever do a 1 night stay. And part of the reason is, like you said, like you could run into some issues if you have those types of stays.
But you do
usually
allow 2 nights.
2 nights, yeah. Because
Interesting.
if you don't allow 2 nights, when someone searches for weekend stay, Lake Anna in July,
They miss all of that.
your
Yeah.
property's not on the list.
If you've got 3 or 4.
You've got 3 or 4 minimum nights.
Wow.
You're not on the list.
That makes sense.
So,
Scientist.
yeah.
Right back to it. Scientist. What have we not covered in the last 2.5 hours that you would like
Right.
to leave our dedicated and loyal guests with?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's some things that we use from a software perspective
Okay.
that enable our success over and above what a typical like owner operator could do.
Okay.
We use AirDNA, and that provides data. And if you're ever looking to figure out like how much money a property could generate,
Air DNA.
yeah,
It's a software
AIRDNA,
application.
Yeah. .co. It's a not com. .co.
Okay.
Um,
You pay for it to use it.
we have like the super platinum subscription where we get like
Mm-hmm.
all the data for the entire world.
Okay.
Um,
And that helps you do what?
that helps us with a couple of things. It helps us do like pacing data so we can
Mm-hmm.
like see how our properties are doing in comparison to other properties.
Okay.
So that like gives me an early warning if like I'm overpriced or underpriced. Like it just helps me to kind
It's
of
comparing you to other properties in this area.
I get to choose my comp list.
Okay.
So I choose the comps that I feel are best for each property, and then
Okay.
I can kind of compare myself to them.
Cool.
So I think it looks at like occupancy, nightly rate, how far in advance you're booking, those types of things to like let you know how you're doing.
How you're ranking, so to speak, against those others.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
The only tricky thing that some people get hung up on for that one is AirDNA is perfect if you're doing that for like data in a city.
Mm-hmm.
At the lake, there is a big difference in revenue generation, lakefront versus Lakeview or water access. And the algorithms don't always take that in consideration. So like you
So
might have
it might overstate.
it might overstate
Yeah.
lake access estimate and understate lakefront revenue.
Yeah, I've heard Air DNA is can be sometimes hit or miss out here.
You really have to look at the comps that it's using, and
That's where it's
based off
valuable.
The comps.
That's
Yeah,
where it's
so,
valuable. Okay.
We use a thing called TouchStay, which provides guidebooks to guests, and that'll have
Nice.
information in there that is super helpful, as well as like local recommendations for places that they can go. Like we've got our favorite like restaurants and that type of thing that we recommend in our guidebooks. We also have this thing we use called StayFi, and it's like a Wi-Fi network at the house. And once a guest logs into that, it's kind of like a hotel. You like provide your name and email address in order to get access to the Wi-Fi at the property. And we provide free Wi-Fi to all guests, but now I've got the contact information for all the people who are staying in the home instead of just the primary renter. So that's a helpful one for kind of getting people to book directly next time and for our marketing
Staying in
efforts.
touch with them.
Yeah. We also do have some marketing software that we use to, help generate more direct bookings. And I already covered the Superhog. We've got some like local vendors that we really like, and we get priority treatment from those vendors. So
Nice.
handyman, cleaning teams, like
Boats.
boats, even like everything, like lawn care. Like we've got
Are you
people
guys
that
hooked
we
up
would
with any
recommend.
fishing guides? You should hook up with fishing guides if you're not. That's a popular one here.
Okay.
I can help you out with that.
All right. That sounds perfect.
It'll be me.
There you go.
Just kidding. I would be a lousy fishing guide. But yeah, that'd be a good one.
Another thing that we do is we get a lot of like large bookings, and so people will book like multiple properties, and
Oh, okay.
that's really helpful to like filling up our calendar. Is like someone's like, hey, I've got like 30 people. Like, do you have any homes that will accommodate 30 people? No, but you can book
Here's
two.
these two, these three.
Yeah.
Right. Nice.
They're across the cove from each other, or they're within walking distance of each other, and so that can be helpful.
Nice.
So there's some things that we kind of get that like last 20%.
Right. So your estimate is, if someone's going to self-manage, you with your services can probably add, another, 20 or 30% on top of that.
My 100%.
I bet it's a lot more than that, man.
My goal is that even with my fee, you end up earning more, and then you don't have to do any of the work.
Yeah.
I
think it's
that's
more
the goal.
For whatever it's worth. I think my opinion is you're going to double what somebody's going to do on their own. Your
Maybe.
Blue Heron is a perfect example. You had a professional property management company
Right.
say you were going to do 115 or 120. You turned it around with your system and you did over 200.
Right. Yeah, I guess that's true.
So yeah, I think you're being conservative and humble, but I think your
guess
returns will be.
It's tricky because I used to be the owner.
Yep. Yep.
So, but yeah, the average person, you're right, might not do so well.
Yeah. The average person isn't going to self-manage it the way that you have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the neighbor to Blue Heron.
Right.
He was probably a pretty sophisticated guy, but it was still, it's now being managed and turned into much higher revenue producing.
Yeah.
How can people get in touch with you? Where
So-
can they find you?
Lakeana.org is the
That's you.
direct booking website.
Okay.
It also has my contact information on there. People can find-
Lakeana.org.
Yeah, .org.
What phone number, if people want to call you, what phone number do they call?
My phone number is on
Yeah.
there.
What
My
is it?
direct cell phone number is on there.
What is it? Do you remember it? Do you know your number?
I do. I also have a business phone
Mhm.
that routes directly to my personal cell phone,
Okay.
and that number is on the website.
Okay. Can you spit it out now if someone doesn't want to go to the website?
I don't know my business phone number, but
Is it the
no, that's a different number.
one you and
I
I
have
have
this-
been? Okay, so it's on the website.
It's on the website.
I will include it in
My-
the show notes as
that's
well.
perfect,
I'll just
yeah.
put it down at the bottom. Look, there'll be a link. I'll provide a link down in the show notes. Oh, there you go.
so,
Your business partner.
so my personal cell phone number is currently on our website. If they go there, they will see it. But I'm updating that to be the business phone number soon because I just want a little bit
business
of
calls. You got to have a
yeah.
little insulation there.
a little insulation.
All right. Well, good. Well, I'll put all the contact information on the bottom
Okay, that
so
sounds
people will be
perfect.
able to get in touch with you.
Yeah, no, I think this was great. And the last thing I want to like touch on real quick is like
Yeah.
we've talked a lot about like how to be a successful STR. There are financial benefits that aren't necessarily associated with the cash flow that we can generate from these properties that are almost larger than what the cash flow is. So the cash flow that people get is insulated from depreciation, which is fantastic. So like you're not, paying taxes on a lot of the cash flow that you do get, but the appreciation here at Lake Anna is really strong, especially on these lakefront lots. And if you know, if your
Prices
home
have
appreciates,
doubled in the last 4 or 5 years of many of the water, and it's going to happen again in
yeah.
the next 4 or 5 years.
So if you buy a home and you let me operate it, it's going to cash flow. And then, you know, 5, 10 years from now, if you want to do a cash out refinance, you get a bunch of money in your pocket that is tax free. And there's just a lot of tax benefits, and obviously talk to CPA, but that's one thing that people, they're usually like assuming like I could either get appreciation or cash flow. I can't often get both. And short-term rentals is like at Lake Anna is
Yes.
one of those areas where you can like have your cake and eat it too, in my mind.
It's the holy grail.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. And that's a great point. That's a great point. Dan, thanks for being here, man.
My pleasure.
This was fun.
I
Appreciate
know.
it.